Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the City of Delray Beach's regular commission meetings.
Mr. Long,
Present.
Mr. Boylston,
Present.
Ms. Burns,
Present.
Mayor Petrolia.
I am here. Please stand for the pledge.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're at agenda approval. Any changes, deletions, substitutions, anything? I'm going to ask to just pull for conversation 6S4, that's the Billie Jean King one, just making it 7AA. Anything else? If not, entertain a motion as amended.
Approve the agenda as amended.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Boylston,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia.
Yes.
Mr. Frankel.
All right, we've got a few presentations. We're going to start with a motion to approve the resolution 64-23 honoring Paul Corliss for 30 years of service. So what I'm going to do right now is read the resolution into the record. Wow, that's it. I just walked in, looks like you. I had to look to make sure you're still sitting here. A resolution of the City of the Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, recognizing and commending Paul DeCarolis for 30 years of service with the City of Delray Beach. Whereas Paul DeCarolis began his career in the City of Delray Beach on March 1st, 1993, and on March 1st, 2023, achieved 30 years of full-time dedicated service with the city. And whereas Paul was hired as a utility service worker C in 1993, promoted to equipment technician in 1994, to IPP backflow inspector in 1995, and in 2015 was reclassified to industrial pretreatment program administrator, where he has served with honor and distinction. And whereas Paul is a decorated veteran of the United States Army, he served as a combat engineer and joined the city after he was honorably discharged. He is a graduate of Atlantic High School, holds many certifications related to his area of expertise, and in 2002 entered his Bachelor's of Public Administration degree from Barry University. Earned. And whereas Paul's file is filled with many letters of appreciation and commendation from city managers, local government agencies, and construction managers for providing outstanding customer service and expertise in the field of industrial pretreatment. And whereas Paul is respected for his ability to evaluate situations and make good decisions that are in compliance with city, county, state, and environmental protection standards. He has also displayed outstanding teamwork and initiative in all aspects of his career and approaches his work with a can-do attitude. And whereas he is known for his strong work ethic and willingness to provide the highest level of customer service, Paul is a crucial member of the utilities department team and makes a positive impact on his team members and has made a significant positive impact on the City of Delray Beach. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, as follows. Section 1, that the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach hereby recognizes and commends Paul DeCarolis for 30 years of dedicated and faithful public service. And Section 2, that the City Commission hereby congratulates and expresses sincere thanks and appreciation to Paul DeCarolis for his many years of service and wishes him the very best of health and happiness in his continued employment. Thank you very much. So I think we should give him a hand.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to read the plaque that we have for Paul. So, presented to Paul DeCarolis as a token of our esteem and gratitude for your 30 years of outstanding contributions and distinguished service to the City of Delray Beach, March 1st, 1993 to March 1st, 2023. So, thank you, and we congratulate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have, and Hassan Hajimiri is Paul's director and has a few words to say also.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Commissioner.
As we all know, there is nothing more valuable in an operation of the municipality government than having an employee who is loyal and hardworking. And Paul DeCarlis is a true proof of that. Paul, you are very unique with your own set of skill and your positive attitude at work. You have been a very true essential part of the utilities, administrating the pre-treatment program. And I had an honor to work with you and continue working with you for many, many years.
4.5 more years.
Is that for me or you? Okay.
When you leave, I'll leave.
Okay, thank you. Your loyalty and hard work is true an example for the rest of the utilities employee. Thank you for your services, and looking forward for many, many more years.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Make sure you get a good picture. Here we go. Thank you so much for your service. Okay, and moving on to the second presentation, which we are going to invite Ms. Lachey up to give us our Employee of the Month.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commission. Lachey King, Human Resources Generalist. I am here because we have a wonderful presentation tonight. Our Employee of the Month, Ms. Daisy Zing, come on up. And her supervisor, Mr. Jason Kaufman, will tell you what she did to deserve it.
Fantastic.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Jason Kaufman, the city's engineering division manager, and I've had the privilege of being Daisy's supervisor since I joined the city last June. In a mere 18 months, Daisy has worked tirelessly to successfully secure 5 grants for stormwater coastal resiliency projects totaling in the amount of $34.5 million. She is a huge asset to the city and an extremely kind, compassionate, and team-oriented employee. As a coastal community, we will continue to face flooding and water quality challenges, and we will need this type of leadership to combat the influence of climate change and anticipated sea level rise. Daisy has a great ability to help residents understand how stormwater works and clearly explain the difficult process in solving these challenges. In addition, Daisy has spearheaded a campaign to install stormwater educational artwork at drainage catch basins throughout the city and is coordinating with the Public Art Advisory Board and Assistant City Manager to secure additional funding. Finally, she is also spearheading a Public Works initiative to secure subsurface pipe videoing equipment to streamline maintenance efforts and reduce long-term costs for the city. Sadly, Daisy will be leaving us as of this coming Friday to continue her career with another agency. I pledge to continue her efforts here in Delray Beach, and Daisy, I wish you the best and the best of luck in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are ahead of ourselves, but on behalf of the commission,
Are we doing the rest of this?
and everyone here, we're presenting you with this plaque.
Thank you.
In addition to that, you are going to receive a certificate for 8 hours off with pay.
So I guess that's your last day. You can take it off completely, right?
I gotta give you hands, baby. All right, girl. Leave Friday. Go ahead, girl. Oh, party with that.
Okay.
Check. Where's her check? Cause it goes with that.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Don't leave without your check.
You sent my husband.
Daisy, we wish you the best in your endeavors, your future endeavors. All right, we're moving on to the introduction of our Education Workforce Coordinator, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Office of the City Manager is pleased to share with the City Commission and the public at large that a selection for an Education and Workforce Development Coordinator was recently achieved in the selection of Ms. Janai Bowens. Ms. Janai Bowens brings to the City of Delray Beach some solid background and experiences a la Broward County Schools as well as Miami-Dade County Schools in various program and coordination activities that are pretty consistent with the skill set necessary to be effective here in our organization. She is also an honors graduate of the University of Florida, as well as having secured graduate degrees in both education administration and business administration from both Florida Atlantic University and Florida International University, respectively. She's actually joined our organization a few weeks ago, and given that this is the first formal meeting in which she's had the opportunity to introduce herself publicly, we've made arrangements to do so this afternoon. So I would like to give Ms. Janai Bowen a formal welcome here with the City of Delray Beach. Please come up, introduce yourself, offer a few words. And I also might add, we've actually had you on board long enough to initiate engagement with the city's education board.
Yes.
So you've been able to connect in that regard, working closely with the assistant city manager to begin your process. And initial observation I have of you is that you are definitely a self-starter, and therefore alleviating any concerns relative to being busy and being productive for the organization and the community at large. Janai Bowens, ladies and gentlemen, please.
Absolutely. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Mr. Moore. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Commission. I am very excited to join the City of Delray to champion the education and workforce needs of the city. Within my 30 days, I have been fully supported by the Assistant City Manager, Jeff Orris, and the City Manager, Terrence Moore, in order to develop a strategic plan for how I'm going to be able to assist the educational and workforce needs of the City of Delray. Within this capacity, my mission is to ensure equitable and accessible high-quality education and workforce development opportunities for all Delray Beach students and residents through sustainable partnerships and community engagement. Also within this role, I have a vision to establish key partners and a system where education, innovation, opportunity, and sustainability are wholly accessible to all residents. I look forward to working closely with you all as well as the residents of the City of Delray to continue the wonderful efforts, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, we welcome you, and we're happy you're here as well. Thank you. Okay, good enough?
Thank you.
Enough? Okay, very good. So we're on to the fourth presentation, which is going to be the presentation by of trophies by the Mark Barron crew and Yellow Tennis Ball. Very excited. This is an anticipated day after a really great tournament.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Barron. I am the tournament director of the Delray Beach Open. We are very excited to present this trophy to the City of Delray Beach and to the commissioners and mayor. This was an exciting year for all of us. For those of you who came out, and I hope some of you enjoyed it, and for those of you who haven't, we hope to see you next year as well. This was, has been almost every year in our history, our biggest year. Crowds were great. Hotels were booked. People just enjoyed themselves immensely, and due to that effect, the crowds were a little tight this year. I'm sure if you were there, you understand. So we have already taken one step further to increase on the site the hospitality area for 2024 by 22,000 square feet, which is going to mean we're going to have literally about double the food choices, a lot of health foods, as well as 4 times the seating, which is needed. But more important than that, as far as the attendance for the event, is the marketing that the event does for the city. Unbeknown to the general public, but the tour did a new contract as far as international TV. And we have joined with all the events on tour, the 63 events, and this year our TV audience went from 62 countries in 2022 to to over 112 countries we were televised in, which means, and it has shown each year, if you'll notice the crowds, of course, during the month of February, and being that you can't get a hotel in all of Palm Beach County, that next year should be one of the biggest years during the season and this summer during the off-season due to showing Delray Beach in all its glory as far as the beaches and everything we have to offer all around the world. And if you were in Yugoslavia or freezing in Russia and watched the event in Israel, you would have hopefully said to yourself, oh, I'd like to go there this summer. And thus, our attendance and our economic impact will keep growing, and that's our goal for the event. And due to the city being our co-title sponsor, and for all they've done, and I cannot thank all the people that were involved. Thus, I'd like to bring up my two sons, by the way. This is Adam Barron and Ivan Barron, who is well, they'll tell you their own titles. How's that? But with everything that's happened over the past year, we look forward, as always, to a bigger and better event next year. Thank you very much. And when we get done, we have a trophy presentation for the city.
Very good. Thank you, Mark.
Ivan, if you'll come up.
My name's Ivan, for those that don't know me or haven't had the pleasure of meeting. This year was awesome, unique, tough. We were passionate. We worked our tails off. And we can't say enough about the city employees and staff that stepped up. Literally, everyone was unbelievable, from Parks and Rec to Community Center to the Tennis Center. It was an unreal year, and it was a challenge, and everyone came through with flying colors. So thank you very much. I look forward to working with you and talking to you all soon. And we're looking forward to an awesome 24 event.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Madam Mayor, Commission. My name is Adam Barron, the Executive Director of the Delray Beach Open, and what Ivan said, it was a true team effort from the staff of the city, helping out with everything, making the event what it is today and what it's become is truly unbelievable. And to see it firsthand and watch it come from the first tent that goes up to the last when everyone's crying when it's over for sadness, they want more and more and more. We can't wait for 2024. So thank you for everything.
Thank you. And I have to tell you, I know that you guys were dealt a little a tough hand this year, and I was worried that it was going to really affect what was going to take place at the stadium, and it absolutely didn't. And that goes to the three of you really managing and being so professional and bringing this to the highest level that you guys did. I think it was one of your best years ever, and I've gone to many of them, and so I have to commend you for doing just such an incredible job under the circumstances that you were under. So basically, thank you so much for delivering a fantastic tournament from start to finish. I mean, we've heard a lot of great things about it, and like you said, Mark, those people out there that are thinking about, in other areas and looking at us, come visit us, and if not during the tennis tournament, we have year-round beautiful weather here. So thank you so much for putting that out there. Anyone else?
Sure. I'm going to disagree a bit with the mayor. I thought it was the best year ever. Okay. I've been going for quite a few years, and
did I say one of the best years?
Yeah, you said
the best year ever. I'm sorry. I'm going to take that back.
We agree. But you guys were growing, and then the pandemic hit, so we had to take a little pause and just to do it. But what was amazing with the draw, you had the best Americans, Taylor Fritz and the other gentleman, and then the international players. And what you see, particularly at the main court, is when one of the international players are going, they have their section with the flags and the drums and whatever. It was just wonderful. And it should also be pointed out that not only do you have the events over here at the tennis center, but you did something at Akira, you did beach tennis, you went to other areas throughout the city to highlight that. So I think it was very good at that. But I also think we need to recognize our Parks and Rec department and Public Works, the men and women that work there. They do a great job too.
Without them, we could not have it. Seriously, they are that good. Yeah. They know the event. I think they look forward to it. I don't know why, it's a lot of work, but they step up and they're there for anything and everything we need, and they actually suggest to us things that need to be done to even make it better. And we love that input.
and also the first responders. I was there one
Yes.
evening,
Oh, yeah.
or I'm sorry, one daytime, and there was a gentleman that had a little heat exhaustion.
Yep.
First responders went right up there and took care of everything. So it's a great job by your organization, Match Point, and the men and women in the city. And just
Your fire department and your medical and your police really do a job that is impeccable. Matter of fact, we get write-ups from the tour because they're at all the events, and every one of those groups that I just said got acclimates from the ATB tour in the whole world.
Fantastic.
And just to let you know, due to what you just said, Mayor, as far as we getting a little before the tournament, one of our key staff members who had been with us for 33 years quit 10 weeks before the tournament. So it was really a crunch time for all of us. Not knowing what he did after 33 years, we kind of let him do his thing. So it was a learning experience.
Yep.
But we also learned, because of that, we needed to grow inside the office as well. So just to let you know, there will be another person is going to be hired full-time. So we're adding staff members to our company, and we're going to be bringing back the gentleman who's head of operations from Maryland, and 4 additional people as well. So we're kind of almost 50% increasing of the 100% we had before. So we'll need it, especially with the growth that we're planning on doing for next year. And with that, my sons would like to present the city, if we may.
Yes. Please do.
Real quick, a little shout out to Sam and Amy, who's outside, who was unbelievable. Hey guys. Seriously, leaders by far, they were amazing.
I thought it was easier to get out. Nice little plaque for you all.
Fantastic. This is absolutely amazing. Thank you guys so much. We're going to get a picture here.
Oh, take a picture.
Absolutely. Come on in.
Thank you. May I?
Yes. Yay, guys. Thank you guys so much. Great job. Great job.
I didn't say anything about my
Pass it around. Take a look at it.
That's right.
Pass it over.
That was impressive. I saw that, yeah.
Oh, they're in the case. There's the case. All right, fantastic. So we are now at the comments and inquiries. We're going to move to Mr. Moore's response to any public inquiries.
No additional formal responses at this time, Madam Mayor. However, I did include 2 specific formal presentations I'd like to have facilitated at this time.
Okay.
Much of which is a function or in response to some questions and concerns that have been raised in recent months regarding the administration of daily operations in both the Delray Beach Fire Rescue Department and that of the Delray Beach Police Department. Particularly the administration of overtime, how it works, why it moves, how it fluctuates, etc. A few months ago, up until the last couple months actually, my office facilitated individual meetings with elected officials in an effort to bring clarity and understanding as to why we are where we are. And we did talk a little bit about this in the context of the recent budget amendment policy, whereby the City Commission will now have the opportunity to understand and review upfront when changes and adjustments may become necessary. Likewise, above and beyond that, ladies and gentlemen, direction is being made available this evening to provide an opportunity for the public as well as the Commission to receive a comprehensive public demonstration relative to why we are where we are and what's being done responsibly to get to the absolute best place possible. With that, I'd like to begin with leadership of the Department of the Delray Beach Fire Rescue Department, beginning with Chief Tommy, to be accompanied by Assistant Chief Greg Giacone, as well as Division Chief Bradford is with us as well. Some analytical capabilities in this regard, and again, I think this will offer a great deal of clarity and background information for the Commission and the public's benefit to likewise coincide with the recently authorized budget amendment policy. Followed by those gentlemen, a similar dialogue from leadership of the Delray Beach Police Department so that clarity can be achieved in that regard with respect to the administration of overtime opportunities in that context. Gentlemen, if you would, please.
Good evening, Keith Tommy, Fire Chief. Like Mr. Moore said, we're going to go over some fire department staffing
and some overtime, how we fill overtime, how we fill vacancies and things like that. I brought with me tonight Assistant Fire Chief Giacone and Division Chief James Bradford. Chief Bradford's going to give us the actual PowerPoint presentation, so I'm going to let him go ahead and get started.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for taking the opportunity to allow us to give this presentation. I know we've had the opportunity to meet with some of you. This is essentially the same presentation in just a little bit of a revised format. A couple of things that I want to point out as we talk about fire department staffing. There are a couple of definitions and terminology that's important to understand. I'm going to refer to the positions that are going to be talked about in this presentation as firefighters. It's important to understand these are men and women that also respond to emergency medical services calls. So these are our paramedic staff. These are folks that respond to all 911 calls that the fire department responds to. So even though you're seeing this as strictly fire department staffing with firefighters, when I say that term, please understand these are also folks on the ambulance that are paramedic trained and providing those emergency medical services as well. So what you're seeing here is a snapshot of the fire department staffing as it relates to the operations of the fire department. This accounts for every firefighter that is within operations. These are boots on the ground that are responding to calls for service. You'll notice what's delineated are a series of filled-in solid firefighters with a series of clear firefighters as well. The solid firefighters represent people that are physically here. Those are filled positions. Those are staffed full-time. The clear firefighters that you see on the screen, that refers to vacancies that are current openings in the fire department staffing. So when we talk about the operations budget, there's a few folks that are not included in this. So for example, Chief Giacone, some administrative staff, administrative assistants, those are not reflected here, but you would see those if you're reviewing the budget, you would see those salaried positions there as well. So in general, the fire department splits our staffing up over 3 different shifts. We refer to those as A shift, B shift, and C shift respectively. And currently those are staffed, you'll notice at the bottom, we budget for 53, 52, and 53 positions across those shifts, bringing us to a total operational staffing number of 158. And we're going to kind of explain why that number is what it is and how we derive that number. Currently, there are a number of vacancies in the fire department. Our current staffing sits at 136, and that's an explanation that we'll get into as far as it relates to overtime. So where do we put these folks? The city operates out of 6 different fire stations. Those are reflected by the 6 different houses you see on the screen. And in general, there's 6 different houses have a little bit of a difference in the number of firefighters at each house. That has to do with some specialty resource units that we have. So in general, it's important to understand that the minimum daily staffing, the minimum number of firefighters we need on any given day, and that's 365 days out of the year, 24 hours out of every single day. We have not missed an hour of service to this community yet. That number is 39. It takes 39 firefighters to make sure we're providing the services that the community both deserves and expects. Those are reflected in the positions that you see here on the screen. In addition, you notice that each shift has 52 firefighters. At normal staffing, we would have 13 float firefighters that will fill in vacancies that happen on a daily basis in the schedule, and I'll explain what those are here in just a moment. So budgeted positions on any given day on every shift across those 3 shifts is 52 positions. We take those 52 firefighters and we use those to fill the daily roster. So this is a starting point for the day. We have to account for certain folks that are just not at work for a variety of reasons. The first group of vacancies we'll discuss is the Kelly Day. And what that is basically an unpaid day off that allows us to comply with federal labor laws as it relates to hours worked based on the firefighter's schedule. So when we see those positions on the screen, they become clear. Those are now vacancies on the daily schedule that we're going to fill in a moment. But we don't only have Kelly Day vacancies we have to account for. We have to account for folks that are off on vacation, and we allow 4 positions on any given day. That's in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement. So 4 additional firefighters come off the schedule for vacation. But the last set of vacancies we have to consider is also sick. We know from our experience that on average we have about 3 folks that call out sick on any given day. And a little bit of that is a function of what we've learned since the pandemic. It's just simply professionally and socially unacceptable for people to show up to work sick. It's also important to remember that our firefighters live in communal living space. They're inside the fire station in closed quarters, sharing meals together, in closed living spaces. So we just simply don't allow people to arrive at work sick any longer. You know, if somebody has a cough or a sneeze, you know, everybody's looking over their shoulder going, what is that? You know, so we know that we have about 3 sick vacancies on any given day. So we pull those sick firefighters off, and this shows the total number of firefighters that would be off on a daily basis. But remember, we have those 13 float firefighters, and that's by design and that's intentional. So you'll see that we'll take those vacancies that occur and we will pull those float firefighters into the schedule, and we will use those to fill those vacancies for Kelly Day, vacation, and for sick, daily sick vacancies. But you'll notice that there's still 1 firefighter that's here that we could not fill with standard staffing. This reflects the need for continued overtime in the fire department budget. This is where we kind of balance the need to have full-time regular staff and the need to be able to adjust and not overstaff the department, but showing the fiscal responsibility and how we staff. So to kind of summarize that, this slide shows the 3 different categories of vacancies that occur. The green reflects the 7 Kelly Day firefighters that are off. The blue reflects the 4 that are off on vacation, and the red reflects the 3 that are out on sick pay. At the current staffing level that we exist, we don't have 13 float firefighters on any given day. We only have 6. So you'll notice that reflected in the bottom left corner, and to not go through the exact same graphics and animations to show those being filled, we'll simply pull those onto the schedule and show you that we have an increased need for overtime currently. Remember, the minimum number of firefighters on any given day is 39, so we have to staff that number. If we were to use the analogy, and no offense to anybody that operates a landscaping business, but if we were landscapers and we had our landscapers call out sick or they weren't there for any reason, we would simply mow less grass. We can't just simply respond to less emergency calls for service. So to be able to provide the level of service to the community, we need that number 39 every single day. To be able to ensure we have those firefighters in the seat, we use overtime. So you'll notice the slide says that we recall firefighters from other shifts. They're either being recalled from their Kelly Day, their unpaid day off, or from another shift and being recalled to work through either voluntary or mandatory overtime to fill those vacancies. So what does that mean to the budget? Well, there's essentially 2 pots of money that we use to pay firefighter salaries, regular full-time salaries, and we also budget for overtime. The overtime bucket of money is kind of split up into 2 different categories. Those that we use for operational needs, that's when we account for the people that are out sick, perhaps somebody that's out on maternity or paternity leave, somebody that goes out from a workers' comp injury, for whatever reason is not able to be utilized as a firefighter. And then also our special event overtime. So when we increase staffing for the tennis tournament, for example, or for the Delray Affair, for all the various city special events that we provide staffing to, we don't take away from the operational needs, because remember, we still need 39, but we bring in additional staffing for those special events. And so we budget for that. As we started the current fiscal year, we had, when we were doing the budget planning for the fiscal year we're operating in now, the fire department had 13 vacant positions. Those positions were known and anticipated. We planned to fill those during the year. But what happens when you carry vacancies, we're not paying those regular full-time salaries. Remember, we're filling those positions with overtime. So what happens is that from time to time, as a part of normal budgetary process, those dollars need to be moved from the salaries allocation and moved over into overtime. So you'll see that as we move those dollars, the salary bucket becomes smaller, the overtime bucket becomes larger, but those dollars are still being used to pay someone's paycheck. What we experienced that was unexpected and really unprecedented is we had an additional series of vacancies that occurred since October 1. and really since the budget was set a little prior to October 1. But those additional vacancies were for a number of reasons. We've had some folks that have decided to retire early, so they retired earlier than their planned retirement date. We've had some resignations for a number of reasons, and we've also unfortunately had to terminate some firefighters. All of those things compounded and has caused us to go from not 13 but 22, and actually as we sit today, that number is even higher. We've had a couple of additional resignations, which drives up the need for additional dollars to move from the salary allocation over into the overtime allocation to be able to staff those trucks. As we bring on new firefighters, and we're currently under the, we're in a hiring process currently. We have about 14 to 15 firefighters that we have extended conditional job offers to that we plan to bring on board here in the next few weeks. Our expectation is to see them actually on the truck after a initial training period to integrate them into our system. We expect to see them sometime in early June actually moving the needle to reduce overtime so that we're not as dependent on it. As we bring on those full-time firefighters, again, dollars may move from the overtime allocation and need to be replaced back into full-time salaries. And it's a little bit of a balancing act. And again, it's just a part of normal budgetary process to make sure that the salaries are being paid from the appropriate accounts. So really the most important thing that we want to emphasize is what does that mean to the service and the services that the fire department is able to provide to the community. Well, if we look at the top, you'll notice again, remember that number 39 firefighters that we need on any given day. If the funding does not remain in salaries and or overtime, if that funding is then removed, the only option that we're left with is to make a decision on whether we keep trucks in service. So at the current staffing levels, what we've done here on this screen is we've kind of grouped together the vacancies to show them on an actual vehicle. So you'll notice fire trucks at the top, you'll notice ambulances at the bottom, assigned to each of those different fire stations, and the firefighters below those units reflect the actual firefighters on each of those vehicles. So we group them together based on their vacancies, and what we would be left with is without funding for those positions, the reduction in service would lead to a reduction first in shutting down an ambulance potentially at one of the stations. The next option would be to shut down a fire apparatus, either one of our ladder trucks or one of our fire engines. And based on our current numbers, we would potentially, with the same number of vacancies on any given day, we would potentially need to reduce staffing on an additional ambulance at 2 additional stations. So what we hope to really reemphasize is that although the budgetary process allows for us to make some projections, there are things that occur that are simply unplanned, like we experienced in this last year where we've had a number of vacancies that have occurred. We've taken steps to fill those vacancies. Remember, there is a reflex time to bring in firefighters. We can't simply hire a firefighter off the street and expect them to come in and integrate into our system. It's a highly technical job. We work in teams, so team training is important, both for the safety of the public, but also for the safety of the firefighters on the truck, being able to trust and rely on the actions of your teammates and your crew members. So as it relates to salaries and the funding for full-time positions and overtime, we need both of those funding sources, and really we're just hoping to express how those dollars move back and forth within the budget throughout the year. So with that, that's the conclusion of the presentation. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
The commission? Anything? Sir.
No, I'll just say thank you for putting this presentation together. I know I was able to sit through it a few weeks ago and was excited for it to be presented to the public because I think you did a really good job in putting it into nice, clean graphics and taking the time because there's been a lot of questions on this subject. I had an opportunity to speak with Julia today, our auditor. She did recommend as we go into the next budget cycle, I don't know if you had an opportunity to speak with her, that we do audit how we budget all of our overtime, not just in the fire department, not police station, but any and all overtime, that we should have that audit looked at. And if we want to change how we do overtime, then there's a lot of different models out there. Or if we learn that this is the best model for us, then this could be the best model for us. But it's certainly something that I'm interested in as we go into the next budget cycle.
Anything else?
Thank you.
No? Okay. My only concern is this. It feels, as you're going through this, that our department is somewhat unstable. To have, excuse me, so it's not funny. I'm concerned and I'm inquiring because I would imagine that other people are thinking the same thing. When you have 13 spaces that are open and now it's 22 and maybe even more, the question I have is, why do we have, in this day and age right now, so many that are leaving and so many vacancies, and why are we not making sure that we fill those vacancies so we don't have this issue with overtime? Because overtime is more costly for the taxpayers, but more importantly, it's not really transparent with respect to the salaries, because I think this came up due to the fact that we had that $209,000 per month salary that was being pushed into overtime, which is over $2 million a year that we're using for overtime. And that was the question that actually precipitated this whole issue. And when you spell it out, I understand it completely, and I understand that we need this. But why are we not filling those positions, and why are we losing so many?
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, thank you for the question, and it's well received. I want to assure you that the department is in no way unstable. The 13 vacancies that we entered the budget year with, there was a plan to fill those vacancies, and that's the plan that's being acted out currently. And so as we've seen some of those additional vacancies that have occurred, we've requested the ability to enhance above the 13, as number 14 leaves and number 15 leaves, we're taking steps right now to fill those seats. We also pride ourselves on hiring the very best possible candidates. So when the hiring of firefighters happens, it has to be a little bit strategic, because we're hiring folks that are coming out of both the Fire Academy and Paramedic Academy. Those schools graduate at certain timeframes where it's more beneficial for us to grab a fresh group coming out than to wait, say, after another 4 or 5, 6 different departments have hired, or when we're off cycle from when folks are graduating from the academies. So you'll notice in the 22-23 budget, as it was presented, those 13 vacancies were held. We only funded those positions at 75%. That was intentional because we knew we weren't going to fill them in quarter one of the year, of the fiscal year. We plan to open that hiring process in January and bring those folks on board in quarter two of the year, which is currently where we're at and what we're doing. So the timing of why those vacancies were allowed to exist was a little bit strategic to try to make sure we're grabbing the best possible candidates, which we're proud and happy to report that we have a very robust candidate pool that we're drawing from, that not only will we be able to draw for the current vacancies that we're filling, but also a robust list that we can then go to later in the year if the need arises to hire even more full-time firefighters. But there is a little bit of a balancing act that goes on of trying to ideally, yes, we would be fully staffed every single day out of the year, and that would have a lower impact on our overtime. A little bit of this is a balancing act. Also, industry-wide, you're seeing a cycle of folks that have departments that are experiencing attrition, and that's kind of related to the career span of 20 to 25 to 30 years. And where we sit today, we're about 30 years after the implementation of ALS response in the fire rescue model. We're seeing that across Palm Beach County. We're seeing it across all of South Florida, that the folks that started 25 to 30 years ago, they're retiring out of our system. And so that's why so many of these, remember, we hire in groups. So the 15 that are coming on now, if they stayed for 30 years from now, we're going to have an additional 15 that are going to all leave at around the same time. And that carries over. So I hope that answers your question as far as why those vacancies occurred, and we're actively taking steps to fill those.
Yeah, I just, again, it seemed to me that we had some, I get it, and I understand what you're doing, and I appreciate it fully, because I obviously want to have the best here, as everybody else does here. And I think we are moving towards that, and I hope that we will see this progressed so we're not having as many vacancies, because when you see all those vacancies on these charts, it doesn't make me feel real comfortable. I don't want to be in an emergency when there's nobody here.
Sure.
Obviously.
And the biggest takeaway, please, is understand that minimum number of 39, that's what we need every single day.
Right.
And we ensure that like I said, 365 days out of the year, and we have not missed 1 hour yet. We ensure that those firefighters are here.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much for that presentation, gentlemen. And is there any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for the abundance of clarity in the presentation and for maintaining the level of service that you have despite this, what seems like unprecedented level of vacancies to your essential staff. I've had a chance to meet a lot of firefighters over the last few months, and I know a lot of these folks don't necessarily want to work overtime. They're making sacrifices. They're sacrificing time with their families, to their personal lives, to step up and fill these shifts that have to be filled. And so I just want to say thank you to all the officers who have made that sacrifice to maintain this level of service. And I'm really glad to hear that it looks like we're finally, able to start filling some of those vacancies and take the pressure off. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Vice Mayor.
Guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, Russ Major, somewhat of a similar presentation as it relates to the Delray Beach Police Department. However, is a principal focus relative to the clarity in terms of how overtime opportunities are administered and equitably made available. So randomization and other strategies are incorporated as part of that practice. Chief Major, if you would, please.
Thank you. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. City Manager, Mrs. City Attorney. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My goal today is to provide some transparency in relation to the question of police overtime. Next slide. As you can see, we have a deficit issue, much like the fire department, but I'm going to get into how we sort of rectified that scenario or that position with the openings. But currently, as I took over as chief of police, we had 17 openings. 17 openings is critical because the way we do business and the way we deploy officers out, it impacts our road patrol deployment. If we don't meet a certain minimum staffing, much like the fire department, we fall short of our obligations to the city and providing safety and security. Now, you see the number 17 is our actual vacancies. There's a line item there called non-deployable officers positions. What does that mean? Well, through the year of 2022, and I use that as a static year, we have something called non-deployables. And what that means is there are certain officers throughout the year who are not considered deployable based on light duty injuries, on duty or off duty, maternity. If one of our officers comes in and says, hey, I'm pregnant, we immediately take them off the road for their safety. We put them inside the agency and we work them until they're ready to actually take advantage of FMLA. Maternity and paternity as given by law to the men as well. FMLA, they call that. Military leave. We have a lot of moving parts with regard to military leave. We have over a dozen officers that come and go throughout the year, sometimes months at a time. Administrative leave has to do with disciplinary issues. There are some officers currently that have been on administrative leave for quite some time over the course of 2 years, but we still have to wait for the outcome of criminal investigation, so we're on hold with that. So in reality, when you talk about 17 officers vacancies, we really are operating throughout the year at 27 if we've just used 2022 as a cross section. But with that being said, though, we don't ever come to work without making sure that we have proper staffing, much like the fire department. It does sound a little overwhelming, a little horrific, like, oh my gosh, are the police not going to be there when we need them? We 100% will be there. It is my job as a manager, as well as those that work below me, to make sure and ensure that we have proper staffing levels. But this number, 27, before we even get into the overtime issues, you can see it's a critical number. To put that in perspective, we have 68 officers who work on the road. What does that mean? The road patrol officers, those are the ones that respond to your house when you call for a police officer. If you have 68 and you do the math, minus 27, we now have 41 that we're deploying. It's a 40% deficit. I don't mean to scare you with the numbers, because I can assure you that we're putting out the proper minimum staffing every single time we deploy a day or night shift. But it's important that you see the numbers so you can understand how this impacts and drives the overtime. Next slide. Okay, is there another one? I think it's out of order. Yes, thank you. Factors driving the increase in overtime. Now, community patrol, that's what we call the patrol officers, the one that drives the police cars and shows up day to day to your calls for service. Proper deployment to maintain, we have to have minimum staffing going out. Our minimum staffing levels are 11. We have to put out 11 officers per shift. That's 11 hours in the day shift, 11 hours in the night shift. If we can't meet that need, we have to fill it with overtime. If staffing levels fall below minimum, it requires overtime positions. We realize that, we stay ahead of that, we monitor it. There isn't a night that goes by that we put out below minimum staffing levels. We always meet it. But when you say that, what does that mean, Chief Major? It means that we have to staff it with overtime, unfortunately. And that's due directly to the openings that we have. It's not a question of managing or mismanaging. It's just simply the deficit of officers as it relates to what we actually need to put out. There's definitely a requirement for overtime to fill the need. Special events is another entity that's driving the shortage. If you look at last year, 2022, we had 94 special events that were held in the city of Delray Beach. Love the special events. It's what makes the charm and the draw and the interest amongst the other fantastic things that Delray has to offer. But again, when you look at that from the standpoint of needs for safety and security, we have to staff those accordingly. That is above and beyond the normal road patrol functions that I'm talking about when I talk about community patrol. This is completely separate. We have this much overtime going on, or this much road patrol time needs and requirements going on, and the same for special events with a pool of officers this large. So you could see we make it happen, but we realize that this is just a situation. It's almost like a good bad situation. We have great special events. There's a need for safety and security, but we have to provide safety and security, which means overtime. What I put down at the bottom there with regard to collective bargaining agreement, that was an impact due to collective bargaining. Collective bargaining took about 10 months after the actual the deadline date, and that was nobody's fault. That was the natural progression of working out disagreements between the union and the city. It took a few extra months to make that happen. But what that did was once it was agreed upon and decided, it was retroactively put back into salaries and overtime. So it took a little time to make that happen, to make everybody whole. But when you look at overtime, it's just not just the static number of community patrol, making sure we have proper patrol, making sure we have proper staffing as it relates to special events. There is a big component of this, which during this last year, or actually 2021, 2022 time, collective bargaining has a significant impact to the overtime line item. Next slide, please. With regard to assigning overtime, now, I want you to know that we have a third-party company that actually provides the overtime. We have a phone app that we have that's through the third-party company. The third-party company looks at schedules, looks at availability, looks at the amount of hours an officer can work in a day. It takes that all into consideration. We can't work you more than 16 hours a day as part of our policy. But it looks at all that, and then it takes all those details month to month and starts calling everybody or apping everybody on their cell phone saying, do you want this detail? And we'll say we start off with ID number, who's the most senior, and you start working your way down the list. As that is happening, multiple details are popping up on the cell phone. Multiple are circulating. There are people who don't like to work overtime details. There are people who eliminate their names off the list. Then there's a group of people who work some details. Then there's the group that works everything that comes down the line. At the end of the day, whether 10 people are working 10 details or one person is working 10 details, it has to be staffed at the end of the day. The question came up as to how or why a certain person may get more details than another. Some people elect not to work them, where others will always say yes. They are working, though. They are working literally 365 days out of the year. They are working their normal shift, as long as they don't exceed the 16 hours, and then also they're working on their days off. So you can accumulate a significant amount of overtime, but that is not anything as it relates to, is there any kind of misappropriation, or is there money going to one person over another? It's simply some people choose to say yes, and if you say yes, you go to the bottom of the list on that phone app. But then the other 3 or 4 details that are coming, there might be a lot of no's in between, which means he's back up again. So you might see working some of these details or going to some of these details, there's a lot of the same faces. So it's not a policy issue. It's just a matter of who wants to work the details and who doesn't. Now we get into situations where we don't have enough officers to work the details because we get a whole bunch of no's. Everybody's tired, everybody's exhausted, we don't want to work the details. That's where we come in as managers and we say, you know what? We have to mandate you because we have to have a certain amount of officers for safety and security, whether it's for police overtime or special event overtime. They're all overtime as it relates to the explanation of the line item overtime. But as far as being a manager, we have to make sure that if they're not going to take those overtime specialty spots voluntarily, we're going to have to mandate that because we have an obligation to the city to provide safety and security. Now, our recruiting. This is an explanation on how you get rid of or reduce your overtime. Now, I managed with my team when I came in at 17 as a deficit to focus on what can we do differently to fix this deficit. There are many people out there. Let's figure out a way what we can do to try to attract good, qualified officers. Not lowering our standards. We're not going to change the way we do business. But how can we get the draw of qualified applicants? And we really spent a lot of time. We were very aggressive. We actually filled 17 spots. A 17 spot last week. We have 12 in the January Academy, and we have another 5 going to the April Academy. This was super aggressive on our part. Again, not lowering standards and working diligently and hard to fix this problem. I don't want the city to have to endure overtime if we don't have to do that. I would be a bad steward of the money. It almost right now is a necessary evil, and I hate to say that. I'm not looking to spend money that I don't need to, but this right here is going to be our saving grace to create a huge reduction in our overtime. The only problem with this is that they can't walk in the door and immediately fill the void. It takes 6 months in the police academy. It takes another 5 months of field training at our agency. And between recruiting, 2.5 months, 6 months in the police academy, and another 5 months in field training, 14 months before I see the benefit of the 17. Now, I hired them. That's half the battle. So this is a significant win for us in the city. But the only problem is we may see a little bit of a repetition as it relates to the amount of overtime we're spending for at least another year. But again, our job is to provide safety and security. We provide the absolute minimum staffing necessary to make an event successful. Same with road patrol. It doesn't mean that every night you're getting the minimum staffing, but we at least have to put out a certain amount of officers each night, whether it's road patrol, or a certain amount of officers each day or each night when it relates to special events. And that is 100% my obligation to do that for you in the city, and I want to make sure everybody is safe. Do you have any questions of me?
To the commission.
So the big cost benefit would be that obviously we spend more per hour in overtime than we would if an officer was filling in with their regular 40 hours a week, correct?
Yes.
At what rate? How much more is overtime?
Well, it depends on what your overtime rate is. Mm-hmm. You know, your rate of pay is. So it'd be time and a half.
Time and a half?
Yes.
Okay. So that's what we're looking to gain back when these 17 positions are filled.
Correct.
In the meantime, we're going to still have a lot more events, a lot more overtime. And so this question goes to Mr. Moore. Are we appropriately charging when we have these events, knowing that most of the events are going to be filled with officers that are be paying time and a half?
Yes, sir. So part of the evaluation process coming up, the April 18th City Commission workshop meeting regarding special event policy does address that particular question. I look forward to working with the City Commission to bring forth some specific recommendations to strike that balance, because I think you're absolutely correct. And that's part of our focus. So yes.
Currently, we do take that into account when we decide what the rate is for an event.
I think the question is that, do we charge what the actual rate is to those that are coming in to do a festival? If we're using overtime police staff, are we just charging them the direct rate and then the taxpayer absorbing the difference?
It's the direct rate in essence, and therefore we need to revise that policy and practice is what I'm saying. So I look forward to offering policy recommendations to get to that place, because it's not a straight time and a half calculation, for example. So it's the direct charge per se, number one. Number two, there's the sponsorship or the co-sponsorship piece as well that takes away some of that particular consideration.
That's a decision for
the commission.
That's correct.
That's correct. And that's why I need to work with you.
It's a
When
different
we do want to make that investment, we can, but I think it's important that we, like you said, the taxpayers aren't paying for the gap there.
Correct.
And I would say that it's not just a calculation of the time and a half for overtime. There's also, these officers are managed. These officers have, individuals over them. So it's actually probably more than that, what we should be charging any event that we do not sponsor with any type of in-kind. So, I think that needs to be fast-tracked because it's not going to be fixed.
That's correct.
For 14 months, or even addressed at all in any capacity for 14 months.
And to answer the question more specifically, my direction to CTEC, Special Events Technical Advisory Committee, is to factor those costs in terms of every individual special event consideration so that we can calculate that and charge accordingly. So that is the practice moving forward. And again, we'll offer a word or two about this more specifically during the next City Commission workshop meeting.
Because I'd be really curious how we're going to figure that number, knowing that some officers cost more than others, correct?
Yes,
Right,
and
so
we,
that's their time and a half.
we actually cap it at topped-out sergeant, even though you have officer, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, assistant.
That
chief.
makes it a little bit easier.
So
Right.
there is a cost cap.
Yeah.
So you're not getting a captain that's been here 20 years. You're paying him a topped-out sergeant. So there is a cap. And if I may, Mr. City Manager, when I was a part of CTAC, also, we actually turned in our cost as it relates to our division, whether it was police or fire. We would turn in, and they would actually calculate that. So there was, I believe that's still continuing. But when I was part of CTAC as a lieutenant, they would ask us, what is our cost estimate? How many officers you're going to use? And so they would get an overview to see how much it's actually going to cost the city. Whoever the vendor was, or whoever.
You would do that cost estimate considering overtime.
Yeah, we would just tell you exactly what it would,
Okay.
what we anticipate. It's an estimate.
Right.
But we would turn that in ahead of time, just so that whoever the city was, CTAC, whoever they were working with, they would get an idea of what the cost and the impact is to the city.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Burns, anything?
Just want to say thank you for the dedication for you and your team for the safety and security of our city, and congratulations on the 14th hires.
Thank you.
Deputy Vice
No,
Mayor?
17 hires.
17.
Deputy Vice Mayor, anything?
Yeah, just to echo my comments that I made to the fire department, thank you and to all the officers who have been working mandatory overtime to make sure shifts get covered. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for your hard work in recruiting 17 more officers. That's great to hear that we'll be resolving this problem eventually, even if it is in 14 months. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Frankel?
Yes, sir. Chief, thank you. I previously saw the fire presentation. This is the first time I've seen your presentation. But it was very informative, and God knows how many times I bother you per week.
That's all right.
Certain things I see, and you're always responsive, or your sergeants or lieutenants are always responsive. Just spectacular. I'm glad we're going to be addressing some of the overtime issues. One question I have is, with some of the vacancies, is it an effect on some of the drastic pension reform things that we did a few years ago? Is there any effect to it? And some guys may train here and then go to PBSO or something like that?
I don't see that as much anymore. I mean, there's always some agency that's raising the bar and making it super competitive, but I think we put out a good product as a city to what we have to offer for our officers. So I don't see that so much as we did in the past.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to mention, and again, this is the same thing that I was talking to Chief Tommy about. We were talking about 14 that you've hired that's going to take, 14 months
17.
to see the 17
Yes.
that you've hired to really get out there. It seems like this should have been thought of before, so we're behind the 8 ball because we're short. And I'm going to talk to my colleagues about what this means. Before Commissioner Casal, or actually after Commissioner Casal left, she had talked a lot about the overtime, and I didn't really quite understand it. I didn't grasp what it was that she was speaking about because it never got to the bottom line. And so this is what I was able to pull, and I just want to make sure that my colleagues understand what we're dealing with here. These are full-time salaried positions. I'm going to name the first one, and then also the amount of overtime for that individual, okay? So a full-time salary position at $100,000 received in 2022, $86,000 in overtime, okay? $78,600 as a salary, $73,000 in overtime. $95,700 as a salary, $90,300 as overtime. This is in addition. $88,000 in salary, $144,000 in overtime. $89.9 thousand, $89,900, $102,000 in overtime. $68,400 in their full-time salary, $63,000 in overtime. Okay, we got a problem with overtime. Mr. Moore. There is a problem in overtime.
Okay.
I mean,
The problem
I
is.
understand.
No,
I understand.
I'm wondering what the problem is, the gap. The
Yes,
50%,
but,
the
but
time and
what
a-
I'm trying to say is that we're talking about hiring now 17 officers.
Mhm.
And this is what we've been dealing with. I mean, these are salaries in excess of $200,000 that we're paying out to to staff on our, and listen, they're not, it's not, I'm saying they're not, they're not earning it.
Right.
The problem is that when we have those types of numbers happening, an overtime should not be any more than half the salary at the most, I would imagine. That's pretty average. But this is shocking to me, and I wanted to bring that up because I didn't hear any of that up here. But now that I'm sitting here with these figures, I think it's something that we have to address, absolutely. And I don't understand how we're looking at 17 hires right now that's going to take 14 months to get out on the street. Are we looking at the next round and the next round? Because we could end up in this situation continuously.
We are. If I may, Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. So upon Chief Russ Major being selected for this opportunity, Tuesday, August 30th, 2022, in that whole selection process, I talked a lot with him relative to strategies to assertively fill vacancies. And in his commentary and presentation today, he's simply talking a little bit about the process it takes to have an officer, man or woman officer, be ready to be out on the street, ready to go, ready to move forward in that regard. And given the direction to that effect, much of it was a function of the observations and concerns being shared with regards to the aggregate of overtime expenses. And a big clarification I was able to investigate is how are these types of opportunities made available. We talked about the third-party organization. We mentioned it as part of your presentation. I don't think you orally articulated the name of the organization as part of the third-party provider. Could you just clarify that once again,
Extra
please?
Duty Solutions. Extra Duty Solutions.
Extra Duty Solutions, and this is a case of individuals taking advantage of the opportunities that are made available by way of overtime. But the way to alleviate that concern is to achieve an environment of full employment to the extent necessary, and that is a focused course of direction, and I'm looking forward to the continued path in which we're on. I participate in new employee orientation every first and third Monday, and during the last few months, many of the new employees coming on board to join the city of Delray Beach are police officers in training. That is the actual position coming forward. So I'm very positive in stating that we are moving in the right direction in that regard, and I would like to have this opportunity be given a chance to be successful and productive because we are making solid progress. So the answer is to alleviate the concern or problem relative to overtime is achieving an environment of full employment. Similar to the fire department, slightly adjusted, of course, in the Delray Beach Police Department because of the anomaly situations you just pointed out, Madam Mayor, because I fully agree with that. And that's been my direction to the leadership of the Delray Beach Police Department. So again, we're moving in the right direction. Positions are being filled, and we will do as much as we possibly can to expedite training so that we can get men and women joining the Delray Beach Police Department actually able to serve the community as a whole. In short, the answer is continuing to achieve an environment of full employment, which that direction is currently underway.
Thank you.
Thank
Anything
you.
else? Thank you very much.
You know what, just if I could, Mayor, just to comment on some of those high salaries. It's surprising how much how many special events we have and how much, I guess we'll call it road patrol overtime. It is what it is. But the problem with a lot of our overtime, and I'll talk about the special events, is it's not mandatory. So there's a lot of people who just say no. Believe it or not, out of the 160 that we're supposed to have, we're at 139, a lot of them say no. Over half say no. Then of the half that are saying yes, some of them are the yeses and nos. Then there's a chunk that just say yes to everything. So that's the numbers that you're reading, and I just want to provide the explanation for it. There are a handful, there's a dozen officers who say yes to everything. And there's others who just don't want to work it at all.
Well,
So
it wouldn't be an issue if
Yes.
we're getting that money back through what we were talking about
Yes, ma'am.
earlier. And I don't know where that goes when it comes back. Does it go into your department or does it come back into general fund?
It goes back into general fund, and we make adjustments from there.
So I just wanted to provide a little explanation to that. So when you read, there is going to be a handful, and that's not uncommon, and that happens a lot throughout the United States. There are just those who just don't say no to any of them. You know, they're staying within guidelines, within the 16-hour guidelines that we have, but they're yesing to everything as it legitimately goes around the wheel. There are so many no's, and there are so many details. There's this many details, and this many officers working the overtime. So just to provide a little explanation to that, but I look
Got it.
forward to working with Mr. Moore and fixing the problem.
Thank you, sir. All right, anything else, Mr. Moore?
Madam Mayor, I yield at this time. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the public, we're going to go to public comment for any public comment that is not I'm sorry, a public, let me just make sure we have a public hearing or a quasi-judicial item. You can go ahead and make your comments. Just make sure that you say your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Mayor, I just want to
Yes.
clarify.
Sure.
It is a first reading for 9A and 9B, but we will be opening it up for public comment, even though it's a first reading?
Well, there's a quasi-judicial.
Quasi-judicial?
There's a quasi-judicial part of the second reading. So in other words,
No, not of the second reading. Under
No,
first
I'm sorry. If you look at the second part, which is 9B, okay, that is quasi-judicial, so that can only be spoken to at this point in time. However, the first part of it is not, so they can actually speak to 9A.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That's accurate. We are going to call them together, though.
I understand, but we'll open it up again for the comments to anybody that wanted to speak on 9B.
We will.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, for bringing that up before I get to speak. Okay. Hello, Miss Pauline Moody, 609 Southwest 8th Avenue. It's Delray Beach, Florida, 33444. Temporary homeless, 707 Palm Trans stop at night. Okay, temporary homeless. Moving on. I'd like to discuss something that was said in both of these presentations, which are very off. One, we can't sit here and pretend that your legal problems are not causing your problems, that police and fire brought up. You had firefighters that were fired for drinking on the job when they were doing detail, which made news, and they were high-ranking people. You had the police that clearly are training, but as we all know that they have a lot of criminal elements over there, you know, like he said, he has to wait till the ones that are in the courts get dealt with. So we're sitting here pretending like you're going to be in 14 months going to be hiring these people that they're training. Criminals training other new people are not going to make it for the city. This city is a mess. You see it every day. Every time I've come to a commission meeting, it's one lie after one lie after one. For what? You haven't gotten anywhere. It's a mess. The streets, the roads are so bad. They weren't like this a couple of years ago. Now they are. They don't drain. Half of the drainage ditch has been taken up by the people that are trying to fix the roads. They have no idea what they're doing. And I asked myself, what happened to street repair? There's nobody supervising anything. Common sense things are not being dealt with. You've given awards to people you don't really know. Some of these people are in trouble with federal government. They're not going to tell you. The records that I know the mayor has asked about that federal came in and took, a lot of them are on those records for fraud. Because when we had the mulch problem, see, you weren't around then. But all those records tell you where all the money is. And that was under the Hardin regime. Hardin's not up there because of me. But that's a fact. But those records contain everything. But look around. It doesn't make any sense. You had a long presentation from police and fire. Ain't nothing changed. You can go home and sit down and put your feet up. Next day on the news, there they go, they drunk again. Or they done shot somebody or burn up their vehicles. Come on. We got to stop pretending like they're going to change. They're not. And you know me. I've been out there on the street. They've done wrong to me. And I have it all on my camera phone. You know, come on. You know I'm going to bring it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to gather myself. Montre Bennett, 323 Northwest 2nd Avenue. Home of the once three-time All-America City. I simply just want to say that this city, and government agencies are and should listen to its residents. Therefore, financial troubles does not and should not allow our comprehensive plan to be redone. As I recall, the city extracted certain policies that was key to building the said neighborhood. I believe that community facilities should be and not changed, and that the people deserve to be heard and not pushed aside. Furthermore, we get great wind around here, and the wall just won't do. Affordable or attainable housing is scarce, and 8 new houses won't give any help to those who are seeking. We all deserve to enjoy life, have liberty, and get peace in this pursuit of happiness. And the police and the fire chief, the police and the firefighters, they're surviving. The cost of living is so high. Inflation is terrible. And like the officer said, the chief said, it's the same amount of people who want to take the overtime. They taking it because they want to survive. So if they getting double, triple their salary, take it, get it. Because I got to feed my family and we got to live too.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Before we start the clock, I think we've got some people who want to yield their time. May I ask?
Okay, sure. If you have 6 people in the audience that will yield their time, you'll have 6 minutes.
So for friends who are here for items 9A, item 9A, if you could please stand.
1, 2, yep, you're fine. Pardon me?
This is for item 9A, not item 9B.
Is it a public hearing?
9A is a first reading,
Yeah, so it's
but we
okay.
won't recognize public comment on that one. We will recognize public comment on 9B, which is the quasi-judicial one.
So, but because it's not a public hearing, correct? It's on the regular, let me see here, where are we?
It's a public
It's a first reading, no?
Right, it's a first reading.
So a first reading, they're allowed to comment now
Correct.
for 9A. That's my understanding. And 9B, we would have a second time up. Okay, that's what we discussed to begin with.
Yes.
Okay, so your 6 minutes, you have plenty of people in the audience that were willing to stand for you. Your time begins now, sir.
Item 9A?
Yep, 9A.
All right. Dear friends, dear neighbors, my name is Pablo Del Real. I live at 6285 White Pine Way, Lantana, 33462. I'm here as a staff person for Soil and Soul. We're a nonprofit agency, and our mission is to teach mindfulness and eco-healing. And we do a lot of work in the city of Delray Beach. We run the High School Mindfulness Club at Atlantic High. We run the Holistic Wellness Circle in collaboration with Cocoa Plum Nature School, which is a tenant for Quezon Church. And we also run a new initiative called Wellness in the Set, and that's in collaboration with the West Atlantic Redevelopment Coalition. We're also, Soil and Soul is part of Faith Forward in collaboration with St. Matthew's Church, Ebenezer Church, and Community Primitive Church. So almost all the work that Soil and Soul does in Delray Beach is in community facilities zoned areas on the comprehensive plan map. And item 9A is seeking a change to that comprehensive plan map, as I understand it. Now, I think that is a mistake. And it's a mistake to change the comprehensive plan map for Quezon Church's vacant property. And I just want to kind of share my reasoning on that. So first, that property has been zoned as community facilities for a very long time. I believe it's been about 50 years. During that time, a half century, that property has served thousands of people. and transform lives in the process. For example, Come to Bethlehem was held on that property for many years, serving thousands of families. The Quezon Community Garden was also on that property for years, serving thousands of people and feeding thousands of people as well. So that property might have served 50,000 people in the last 50 years, an average of 1,000 a year. The change to the map would change what has been a Commonwealth space into a private wealth property. What happens when we turn Commonwealth spaces into private wealth spaces? We impoverish the city. We lose Commonwealth. We privatize a public zone for the private benefit of a few people. That's why this is a mistake, in my opinion. We would reduce the benefit of this property from serving those 50,000 people to serving the church, a developer, and 8 families. This is a real loss for the city, potentially, a loss for 50,000 residents, a loss for everybody here. Now, the church has every right to sell that property. There's no question about that. The question today on item 9A is, does the church have the right to change the map of the city's comprehensive plan? The answer is no. The church doesn't have that right. That's why they're here today. They need your permission, special permission, to change the city's map. Do they deserve that special permission? They don't. The church has every right to benefit from the sale of the property. It does not have the right to impoverish the city in the process of selling its property. A change in the map will impoverish the city. They can sell the property, they cannot change the map. You should not change the map. The city's been very intentional about the highest and best use of this property for over 50 years. Community facilities has been the highest and best use of this property for half a century. Today, the city's being asked to change its comprehensive plan to give that property a different use. What's the different use? What's the benefit? The benefit is primarily to the property owner, the church, the developer, 8 families. What's wrong with that? Let's look at another example. Imagine First Presbyterian Church by the ocean wanted to sell its parking lot, develop a high-rise there to raise money. The city would never approve that. The city should not approve this for Quezon Community Church. Now, you all have to vote on this item today. And voting yes on item 9A is voting to override the will of the people as represented by the city's comprehensive plan and map. A yes vote is also a vote to override the labor-intensive process of comprehensive planning done by city staff and elected officials with input from residents. A yes vote is a vote to approve a creative fundraising plan for Quezon Church that requires a change to the city's map. However, the sale can be made without any change to the city's map. Voting no on item 9A is voting to preserve the integrity of the comprehensive planning process and the will of the people.
Can you please silence the phone? Thank you. And you have a few more seconds beyond. So if you're,
Thank you.
because we're stopping you, that's just. I'm sorry. If there's anybody else with a phone on, please silence it. Thank you. Could you go back just
I'll go back.
a couple of sentences because I was focused.
Sure. So a yes vote is a vote to approve a creative fundraising plan for Quezon Church that requires a change to the city's map. However, Quezon can sell the property without any change to the map. So voting no on item 9A is voting to preserve the integrity of the comprehensive planning process and the will of the people, the residents of Delray Beach. Now, you all were elected, as I understand it, to serve the best interests of the entire city. This should be an easy decision. Please vote no on item 9A. Thank you.
Thank you. You didn't even use it all. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Good afternoon, City Commissioners. I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute to public comment tonight. My name is Sarah Selznick, and I live at 1700 Northwest 2nd Ave in Delray Beach. I'm also co-founder and partner at Thrive Collective, based in Delray Beach. We invest in community assets and support the administration of the coalition. One of the coalition's many projects is Faith Forward. This project's purpose is to protect community ownership and improve and repurpose assets of the faith-based community for collective community uses that benefit both the church and community at large, and city at large. I'd like to first make clear that we are not here in opposition of Quezon Church itself. We understand this was probably a very difficult decision to make and one that was made out of financial pressure. We want Quezon to know that as a collective of partners, we would be honored to step in and support the church and its ability to thrive however we can. I am here, however, interested in protecting the community facilities designation. It is my position that we need more of it, not less. I'm concerned with the potential ease with which we would be making changes to our city's land use map. Why have a comprehensive plan if it's this easy to amend without further visioning, discussion, or public input? Why have one at all? Why designate a community facility district just to change it? We seem to, as a city, be responsive to requests rather than proactive in setting a vision and evaluating requests based on how they fit into the vision we have for our special place. What do we want Delray to be, and who do we want to benefit? I am concerned with land use changing from something that benefits many to something benefiting only a few. Delray is in only a few. Delray is in high demand, land is in high demand, and we are going to keep chipping away at what has been designated for the collective we. If this, what's next? A few acres today, what do we look like 10 years from now? It is my understanding that to make this type of change, we need to show a benefit to the city. I see a benefit to Quezon, I see a benefit to a developer, I see benefit to 8 homeowners, but at a great cost to our city. We have the chance tonight to preserve community facility designated district for generations to come. We can say yes to beloved community, yes to the collective, and no to another exclusive gated community by voting no on item 9A. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Michael Wendt, 1540 Northwest 18th Avenue, Delray Beach. I'll start from the back. I'm Jewish. Okay? We have a new commissioner, deputy commissioner. I elected you. Okay? You can look at hashtag Delray Beach on social media, and as many as you send out, I send out 10 times more for you and for her. I did that because I have a problem with my neighbor that code compliance couldn't fix. And I called the city manager. 5 times he did not respond to me. I called Palm Beach County. They took care of it 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna do a follow-up on it because I wanna know why he didn't call me. After 5 times, I'm just a regular person. Just a regular person. But I never forget nobody who does me dirty. You check your social media and you'll see how much I send out for you, which I don't even never met you in my life. And for Angela Burns that I met, that I like her. And she's from school system. The school system is a failure in Delray Beach. Delray Beach is a total failure. High school got the reading exam, got 50, and 51. This means the whole high school, they do not comprehend what they read. They're going to be criminals when they graduate.
Mr. Nguyen, direct your comments here.
It's going to be on police department.
This way. Yep.
That's it?
No, just direct your comments to
Oh,
us.
okay, I'm sorry.
Thank
It is, you should be right.
you. That's right.
And I like Shelley Petrolia. She just doesn't get all the proper info from the city. They don't even give him proper info to the city manager. He don't know. To know Delray Beach, you gotta live here 25 years. That's how complicated the city is, because we have the worst of garbage and the most intellectual human beings. They live here.
Mr. Wind, direct
Thank
your
you.
comments.
Sorry. That's it. I wish everybody well.
Thank you so much.
You hurt me, I hurt you back. What is it? Later, man.
Okay. Thank you. And,
By the way, I know every single person on social media in Delray Beach. Yeah.
thank you.
You can ask this person right here.
Yes, sir.
Should I go?
Yes, yes, sir.
My name is Chuck Ridley. I live at 210 Northwest 2nd Avenue. And I am also standing with the first two speakers. I do not want to see this property designated changed yet. And for all of the reasons they gave, I do want to give a couple more. There has been much conversations about overdevelopment in Delray. That's concerns for many. But there is a subset of this community that is concerned about equitable development. Development that makes sure that working class families also benefit and in our area, what we now call the set is preserved. We don't have enough information. If you make this change, what is coming to replace it? And what we understand, you're uncomfortable with at this time. It could be just a lack of information. But what we understand is that we're going to get a gated, high valued homes abutted right next to a working class neighborhood. And if the word gentrification hasn't been used yet, it should be, because that is the fear. Now, again, I have all due respect for houses of worship. Churches are important in this entire community, nowhere more than the set. Churches should be engaged in how we do develop, using the land that they have. I'm not looking to set a precedent that stops that, but I am concerned with what is coming behind it and the lack of information that key folk in the neighborhood that is coming in have about that project to date. No other neighborhood will see this kind of decision made without having adequate input. So yes, because of your land regulations and comprehensive plan, we should have this conversation tonight. You're required to do it, but it shouldn't be the first time that folk that have engaged in the set the way I have engaged is just beginning to embrace and hear about that project. That is not right by anyone who's bringing that forward. And for that reason, I am very troubled with this decision being made.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi there. Max Zengage, 1705 Northwest 4th Ave. Couple things is welcome Rob, welcome Angela. Wanted to make a note on the Public Art Advisory Board appointments tonight. As chair of the Public Art Board, I know that the processes that go into it and looking at the applicants who best would fit those roles. I'd like to urge you to consider Bob Costello and Sarah Hong for those two roles. Also, for Historic Board, Chris Cabezas, that was his first pick. And knowing that he is a landscape architect, he's very involved in the community. He shows up when it's needed and when it's not needed. And you know, he's part of the Fountain Building management, and he would be a great pick for that as well. Also wanted to mention, I founded Delray Concord Foundation to be the responsible public community event producer for the next 3 generations in Delray. And we are bringing back the bed races. April 22nd. It is the iconic Pineapple Grove event that ran for 11 years, and it is time to revive that. And also Delray Concord, Delray's Father's Day event, which is family-friendly, community-free, and accessible, celebrating police and fire and families. Thank you for Commission for all your support.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Maya Brailford Espinette. I live at 345 Northwest 3rd Avenue. My backyard faces Kayson's backyard. And that backyard has been there for 65 years. My parents, who have played an integral part in the foundation of Delray Beach, built there and have been there. And so I think that if Delray Beach is concerned about unifying Delray Beach, they should listen to the people that have been here and also take into consideration that we are not comfortable with that project being built. Nothing to Quezon, but I was there before when Mr. Quezon was alive, when it was a mango grove. So I really do believe that before you just make a decision, I would ask that you would consider voting no, because we are not comfortable with that, and our voices should be heard because we are a part of this community. We've been a part of this community. And that's all I have to say. I'm speaking for my mom because I would not be up here any other reason, but I know it's important to her, so it's important to me.
Very good. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Nancy Channon. I live at 200 Northeast 2nd Avenue, and I completely understand the sentiment regarding 9A. I guess my question is, let's say it's voted down, then the church cannot sell it, and then the church goes belly up. And then what happens to the land? I guess I really don't know the answer to that question. I mean, could it result in even more development? Or is there, I just need more information, and I don't know if you have to vote on it tonight, but I know I need more information, because sometimes you are against something and then something even worse happens. So I'm up here to find out that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Congratulations, Commissioner Burns and Commissioner Loans on your on your positions. This is a couple things I want to speak on. It's kind of ironic, kind of funny that I don't say funny, but we're talking about
I think you have to introduce yourself, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Morris Kostarfin, 619 Southwest 7th Avenue, Delray Beach, Florida. I won't say it's funny, but we're talking about potentially 8 homes becoming on a piece of property. Now, and my memory served me correctly. We was talking a few years ago. There's a property owner here, Ms. Young, that has all this property throughout the city that she would like to put multifamily homes, multifamily on some of these properties that will address some of the needs that we have when it comes to affordable homes. But we're discussing about potentially putting multi-million-dollar homes here on this piece of property. I think we're moving a little fast sometime. The city's in need of affordable homes, and we have an opportunity where with some of these churches like Quezon actually own all that. It'll be nice if we can put some affordable apartments or something there. It could be nice that Ms. Young can utilize all the land that she has and put some affordable apartment. We would have to change the zoning for that. And so these are the type of conversation I would like to hear coming from the dais right now versus talking about approving another multi-million-dollar community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Laura Simon with the Downtown Development Authority. Congratulations, Commissioner Burns and Mr. Long. Thank you for your service and dedication. Looking forward to working with you from the Downtown Development Authority. So, we have an appointment on 7D. I just wanted to make some clarifications for the appointment. We did have a tax qualified board member resign. Dr. Alec Costello did resign. So the position that is going to be filled tonight needs to be tax qualified. So I just wanted to clarify that because I think there's some confusion in the backup. And then I also wanted to just remind you all that we do have special events coming up this weekend with Passover and Easter services, as well as next week with Delray Fair. So the 14th, 15th, and 16th is the Delray Fair. It's our huge event for our city, multi-day event, 500 vendors closing down Atlantic Avenue and some of our side streets for 3 days. So just making sure that everybody's aware of that. And also that we are inviting and welcoming the Billie Jean King Cup as well that weekend on Friday and Saturday. So it should be very busy, but I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of the road closures. We're sending out notifications and making sure that everybody's going to be biking downtown. So
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Got it. Yes, ma'am.
Sounds like more police and fire department overtime to me. Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Walker.
Right.
1312 Northwest 2nd Street, Delray. And what I would like to talk about this afternoon, I would like to bring to the commission, and congratulations, Rob and Angela. Let me not be remiss in saying that. The suggestion that the commission meetings start at 5 p.m. versus 4 p.m. I understand there's an ordinance that says the meetings can only go to a certain time, and I was not able to find out what that time is. But citizens can get here easier by 5 p.m. And it's a better time for persons that are not retired like myself. We get here when we need to get here, as witnessed last week. I believe 5 p.m. is a better time for the community. The next thing I would like to talk about is would like for the commission to return the CRA board to the citizens living within the CRA boundaries. All the city boards consist of citizens appointed by the commission. The current board feels like the police officer gave me a ticket, I went to court, and the police officer was the judge. That police officer cannot be objective. The commission is in control of the entire city, as they should be. But should they be in control of the CRA board? The commission should not be in charge of the CRA board. Like all other boards, the CRA should be effectively run by citizens. Boynton's commission consists of Boynton's CRA board consists of commissioners. However, there is a CRA advisory board comprised of citizens in Boynton. So, where is the Delray CRA advisory board?
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Andrea Bruton, 703 Place Devant in Delray. I'm coming on a totally different issue than the firefighter, the police department, and item 9A. My concern is recently on my mother's property where she's been for 50 years, there was some renovation done to the swell of the in front of her house and in her whole block. And the concern is that you replace the swells with two different grass, St. Augustine and I think it's the interstate grass. Well, the St. Augustine grass looks burnt now, where the interstate grass is still fine. So my question was, why was the St. Augustine grass put there when there's no way to maintain it? Just a question.
Okay, thank you. That would be something that the city manager would take care of.
So, Ms. Bruton, I would like to work with the Department of Public Works to ascertain a question. Generally speaking, that does not occur. However, there has been a few instances in which that had occurred and remedies were made available. So, Director of Public Works, Missy Barletto, I'm asking her to please visit with you while you're here so that we can take a look at it and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Burton, she's in the back of the room, wand. Okay, anyone else? Seeing no one, public comment is closed. We have the consent agenda.
Motion to approve is amended.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel? Mr. Long?
All right, we're going to start off with 6S4, which is the item that I pulled just to have discussion with my colleagues. I was really shocked when I saw the price tag because when we were speaking about the Billie Jean, listen, I'm very excited, first of all, let me just say about the Billie Jean King coming to Delray Beach, and so that has nothing to do with this. But when we were talking about it, it was really at a very low cost. And to see a $402,000 price tag was a little off-putting. Now, let me just say that almost $50,000 of that is in kind. But when we're going to be doing these types of, anything, we should really have that information in front of us as to what the cost is going to be, because it could make a difference, not necessarily in this one, because I don't think there was enough there. It could make a difference, though, overall in whether or not this commission would accept it and approve it. As I recall in those meetings, there was nothing really to talk about cost, with one exception. I think that was to the organization that brought them in. I think it was a $75,000 fee that we were going to have to take up for I think it's the county organization.
Palm Beach County
Thank
Sports
you,
Commission.
Sports Commission, correct.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was all I was aware of. But we do have other hard costs here as well, not just the soft costs of you know, the rental and things like that. Because obviously you know that they're going to be playing here, so that's not something that we would take into consideration, and that is part of this $402,000. But I'm just saying that in the future, what I'd like to see is the breakdown of the hard costs that we know we're going to have to outlay, because again, this was not part of our budget, it wasn't something that we anticipated. It came up, we got it approved, and we were actually selected, which is very exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. However, it was I just wanted to make the comments with the support of my colleagues that in the future, when we have something like this, that we should really know what that bottom line figure is so that we know what we're getting ourselves into.
Did you see the breakdown? Because you had to hit text.
I did,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, just make sure.
And it was about 100 and maybe, I want to say 120, 150,000. There were some hard costs that were associated with it. The 75,000 we knew about.
Correct.
But, and of course, the rentals, those are in-kind fees.
And the good news is we had 75,000 set aside for Chris Everett we didn't use.
Correct. And I remember seeing that, but the rest of it we really we're not made aware of, and that's what I'm asking for. Just in the future, when we're making the decision, not after the fact, but when we're making the decision, to know what we're getting ourselves into. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, and you and I had a discussion about this, and I fully support that practice moving forward. So to the entire commission, that is the direction having been offered by the Office of the City Manager, because I like to offer a critical eye when it comes to finance and data analytics myself, and that's consistent with that model. So more than happy to offer leadership and guidance to that effect, including instances whereby in-kind contributions are involved, because that's the predominance of this contribution with respect to participation. So duly noted, and that direction has since been offered.
Okay, very good. So if there can be a motion just to approve?
Motion to approve the agreement.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Okay, so moving on to our regular, I guess it's our regular meeting. We're on resolution number 60-23. This is 7A, item 7A. Anthea?
Good evening, Anthea Janiotis, Development Services Director, and I would like to enter file 2022-150 use into the record, and Ms. Bowling is here with the presentation.
Very good.
This is actually.
May I jump in briefly? I'm going to recuse myself here, and I have a statement to read. I'm abstaining from this vote in order to assure that the proceedings are free from potential bias and prejudice, and that's per Florida Statute 286.012.
Very good, thank you.
And Mayor, this is also quasi.
I was going to say that.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let me read the quasi-judicial rules into the record. This hearing shall be conducted in accordance with quasi-judicial rules. The applicant and the city shall be allowed 20 minutes each to present their case. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each, or a maximum of 6 minutes if the person represents an organization or a group of people who are present but agree not to speak. The city commission, staff, and the applicant may be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant will be allowed to offer rebuttal testimony. The decision to approve or deny an application or appeal may not legally be made upon personal views as to whether a project is a good project or not, nor may a decision be based on the number of citizens who support or oppose a particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether the project meets the requirements of law, the comprehensive plan, and the land development regulations. We have several quasi-judicial hearings on the agenda, so that would be 7A and also 9B. I'm sorry, there were two. So if anybody here is going to be speaking to either 7A or 9B, please stand, raise your hand, and be sworn in.
Please raise your right hands. By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and then when you come up to speak, just remind us that you have been sworn in. And with that, I'm going to go to the commission and ask if there are any ex parte communications with respect to Resolution 60-23, which is the window tinting company.
I don't believe any. If any, there'd be emails on the server, but I don't think even on there.
Very good. No?
No.
And what about, no, and same here, would be on the server if anybody. So at this point in time, we're going to enter the project file into the record.
Good evening, Anthea Giniotis, Development Services Director, and I'd like to enter file 2022-150 use into the record.
And Ms. Valenki, yes, you're
Yes.
welcome to begin. Your
Thank you.
presentation.
Christina Valenki for the record, 14 Southeast 4th Street in Boca Raton. It's a pleasure to be here before you this evening representing Tint World on their conditional use application. So just a little bit of history, because this is not specifically referenced in the PC zoning district, but on January 24th, just over a year ago, the Planning and Zoning Board actually determined that this proposed use was similar in nature to some of the other automotive uses that are permitted within the zoning category, such as oil changes and filters and lubrication. So because of that, we're able to come before you this evening to request a conditional use specifically related to window tinting and automotive styling services. And so that's why we're here today. We are speaking about the subject property. It's essentially the last or southernmost parcel in the city. It's about 0.85 acres. It's a little bit uniquely shaped. It has the general commercial future land use map designation and is zoned planned commercial. It was originally developed in about 1978, and we are proposing to redevelop the property with a 2-story office building with window tinting services. And essentially, Tint World, their franchise headquarters, is located currently in Boca Raton, and they are seeking a permanent home for their offices. They've expanded quite a bit and are doing very, very well in terms of their franchise locations. And so they're looking to really come to the city, develop this with a beautiful statement office building. And as a component of that is training of their franchisees. So not only would you have day-to-day office operations, but whenever a new franchise location will be opened, they want to ensure that their standards are being met in terms of quality of their services. So that's the reason why we are proposing to also include the automotive tinting, window tinting, and styling services, so that, again, they can ensure that quality and caliber of their services is consistent throughout their operations. And so this is the subject property that we are speaking of. I believe all of those establishments have since closed. And essentially what we are proposing to do here, again, with the relocation of the franchise headquarters. And so only a portion of the ground floor building, about half of the ground floor, would be utilized for the automotive styling and services. There'd be training and conference centers on the first floor and offices all along the second floor. This site plan is just to show you, obviously we're going through the process with city staff and then ultimately to SPRAB. But I wanted to show you kind of the location of these services, where they would, where vehicles would come in, so that you can see that the bay doors are not located by Federal Highway. Instead, you enter through the entrance on Federal Highway, go towards the back of the building, and there's 2 bay doors there that will be hidden from public view. Again, we want this to be a real statement piece for the city, and so we don't want to do anything that would detract from that. There would also be a 6-foot high concrete wall along the rear of the property to protect from any potential noise concerns. Although with automotive window tinting, the operations, again, are pretty quiet. They don't use loud machines. They don't have anything that has heavy fumes or odors. So it is pretty quiet in terms of their services. And it's also a smaller operation. It's only 2 bay doors. Essentially, they would service about 6 cars on any given day. They're not looking to, process hundreds of cars at any given time. So in terms of the conditional use criteria, there are obviously several factors to consider, including consistency with the comprehensive plan. So I've outlined 2 objectives, well, an objective and a policy. Objective NDC 2.5 related to automotive dealerships. It says recognize that automotive dealers and auto-related uses are local legacy industries with unique impacts that require appropriate and strategic locations. And I wanted to point that out because obviously along the south portion of the city, along Federal Highway, that is where all of the auto uses are oriented and focused. And policy NDC 2.5.1, accommodate automotive dealerships and auto-related uses on lands with general commercial land use designations, and again, located south of Linton Boulevard. And they specifically reference between South Federal and Dixie Highway. In terms of the conditional use, it is consistent with the Lindell Federal Highway Redevelopment Plan. This plan notes that approximately 75% of the properties located between Federal and Dixie from Linton to the C-15 Canal are occupied by auto dealerships and associated uses. So again, just reiterating, this is essentially the most ideal location for this use. Two other conditional use criteria that I'll go into. The first, redevelopment will not have a significantly detrimental effect on the stability of the neighborhood within which it is located. Again, this is primarily an office use. The service will comprise about a quarter of the actual building. Window tinting and styling services is a low intensity subcategory of vehicle care, much less intense than most other automotive uses that are along South Federal Highway. It's mostly cosmetic in nature, minimal to no noise, no odor emissions, and it requires a clean and dust-free environment. And so here's just the floor plan. You can see the first floor, kind of that larger area is where we are proposing to have the services. The project design also does consider the existing multifamily residential community located to the west. They actually have the same PC, planned commercial zoning designation, and had to seek a conditional use because residential is not typically permitted. So they essentially knew that the area was going to be developed with commercial uses. But still, obviously, we want to be good neighbors. We are proposing a 6-foot high wall, enhanced landscaping along that buffer. We've relocated the building close to the street, as close to as we can, which ultimately will make the appearance of the property look significantly better as well. The service component will take place entirely within the building. The hours of operation are limited to regular business hours, no late night services, shorter hours on weekends, and again, anticipating only 6 to 10 vehicles to be serviced daily. This is just pointing out, obviously, all the other automotive uses in the area. And then redevelopment will not hinder development or redevelopment of of nearby properties. So we're providing for the redevelopment of a very dated commercial strip center that contains mostly empty spaces. This location is in an ideal portion of the city, which largely includes automotive uses. I know a lot of the automotive dealerships have revamped their properties over the last 5 years, or maybe even longer now. I used to live in the area, so I saw a lot of that happen. So hopefully, this will continue that redevelopment trend in the area. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Very good. Well, we'll go to the staff report.
Can't see Darcy from here. No, it's okay. Just switch it out. Dueling mice. Okay, so I think Anthony Giannottis, Development Services Director, for the record. I'm going to go quickly and try not to give you duplicative information. I think the applicant has given you a really good overview of the request. I think it's important to note that the redevelopment plan that is accompanying this conditional use is going to go before this route, assuming there's an approval here, and at which case the physical manifestation of the site plan and the details will also appear before you again as an appealable item. So I think that's just important when we're worried about establishing compatibility and other things, that those details will come before you again. This is the building as it exists today. It's the southernmost property before the canal. And a new basic office headquarters is coming in, and the only component that requires the conditional use is not the office, but it is the actual tinting that would occur inside the building on the bottom floor, on half of the ground floor. again, this is the current site plan. The backup provides the full SPRAB application, because as a board evaluating conditional use, if there's some type of issue that you want to make sure is happening, you could say that, we really want to see palms instead of shade trees or something like that you think is important to establish that compatibility. But again, this is not the only time you would see this and the details as to how it's executed. You do have to make all the required findings related to Chapter 3, and just the high points of that are that the land use and the zoning are compatible. It is important to note that this use was determined through a similarity of use, and the planning board did agree that tinting is similar or less impactful than other vehicular uses like oil changes that are already permitted in the district. And so then this followed that same process for those uses, which requires conditional use approval. For concurrency, the big one for us is always traffic, and the project has received a TPS letter from the county indicating that there is no significant traffic impact that would result from this use. It's 23 new daily trips, 42 peak hour in the morning, 12 in the afternoon. Honestly, though, those also include the office use itself, which is, probably the peak hours that you're seeing as well. So it is all of the uses in the proposed development. And again, the Class 5 would be acted upon the SPRAB if this application is approved, and you will see the details of that on the appealable report. We've pulled out some of the same objectives and comprehensive plan amendments, and this is one of the areas that has a redevelopment plan that does support automotive uses in this area. And again, the standard required findings about making sure there's no detrimental effect upon the stability of the neighborhood. There is residential to the west. Our code does require the masonry wall between commercial uses and residential, and the application right now provides that, as well as landscaping. And again, the code does allow that if there's any particular condition you think is important for the use, you can apply them. And ultimately, I think the considerations for you is that this is a service that is taking place inside an enclosed building. There's nothing happening in the parking lots, or there will be nothing that should be happening like that within the parking lots. And whether the request is a good fit for the adjacent area, and the other considerations is, whether it's a good opportunity to have an automotive-related sort of low-intensity use along that commercial corridor. On February 27th, the planning board did unanimously recommend approval. The condition that they added was that there's no body repair or automotive painting, those more heavy uses, but that's honestly really a restatement of what's allowed by the zoning anyway, so I don't know that it's necessary to have as an official condition, but I think it's important to bring their concern and their comment forward to you. And so I'm here if you have any questions.
Fantastic. Okay, so this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so we're going to invite the public up. If there's anybody who would like to speak to resolution number 60-23, please step forward, state your name and address, and about 3 minutes. Looks like there's nobody moving, so I'm going to close the public comment portion, and I'm going to ask if Mr. Malinke or if Ms. Anthea would like to cross or have rebuttal testimony.
Not for me.
None for either, so to the commission. Yes, please. Anything? No?
I was just saying, I drove past it and I was looking for the fruit vendors.
Yeah.
I saw they weren't there, so.
Yeah, everybody's kind of moved
Yeah.
out. I mean, listen, I think that you're putting this in the right place. It's going to probably be a great service for even some of the auto dealerships utilizing you, and it looks like a beautiful building. I'm glad to hear that you're going to be heavily landscaping the backside and putting that wall up, because there is residential properties behind, but I also appreciate the fact that you've pulled the building forward, and so that it'll make it a lot easier for them to, it won't be as impactful if it was right on top of the line, so I really appreciate that as well.
Thank you.
It has my support.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion?
Motion to approve Resolution 60-23.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
Mr. Ballston?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Invite,
Good luck.
good luck, yes, Deputy Vice Mayor Long, you can return. There's a nomination for the appointment to the Public Art Advisory Board. There's two, actually. I'm going to be the first to make the nomination. I'm going to nominate Bob Costello.
Second.
Okay, any comments, concerns? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes. You know what? Did I jump in front of you? Because it's odd that we would be going backwards on this. I saw my name first and your name second, but,
Wait, you better read again, because it's me.
oh, it's you. I put Burns. Okay, there you go. I knew, I was thinking.
Maybe from one of the
There you
others.
go. Okay, thank you. Mr. Frankel, you're next.
Sure. The other applicant who I saw that had this board ranked number 1 was Sarah Huang.
Yes.
So I'd like to nominate her.
Second.
Okay. Any comments, concerns? Seeing none, call the roll. Thank you for that. I have Ms.
no
Burns in
problem.
here.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
All right, next nomination, it goes to Ms. Burns. I'm so sorry about that, Commissioner. This would be for an appointment to the Historic Preservation Board.
Okay, I would like to nominate Christopher Cabezas.
Second.
Second.
I saw him on the other thing. Okay, very good. Any comments, concerns? Seeing none, call the roll.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Okay, and that was it for that one, right? Okay, very good, because I was trying to do this on my phone. I got to get somebody to look at what I have on there. It's a mess. 7D is nomination for the Downtown Development Authority, back to me. I'm going to nominate, and by the way, can you check to make sure Christina Godbout, tax qualified?
She is.
Fantastic,
She is.
okay,
I'll
great.
second her.
All right, very good. Any comments, concerns? Seeing none, call the roll.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel? Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
All right, very good. Now we're on to 7E, which is a motion to approve amendment number 3. This will be Mr. Orris, I believe, I have down, speaking to, I think this is the bus shelters?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This item, again, is the extension of the MOU with the Chamber Education Foundation. You may recall, for those of you who were here at the time, on February 7th, this first came up, and it was tabled to this meeting. The MOU is designed, put forward, is designed for an extension of the project for another year, as well as an expansion of the number of shelters that can be utilized from 18 to 30.
Okay.
Just so you know, the last time we spoke, it was a quote. There was some question about, almost simultaneously, Palmtran was here talking about their future use of bus shelters. We can confirm that there are only 3 bus shelters that were on their initial list that are in conflict with what the Education Foundation is doing right now. Palmtran has not moved forward, to our knowledge, on movement with that project. They were still looking to get a vendor and did not know what they were going to do after that first group.
Okay, all right, very good. Are they planning on replacing all of ours eventually? Is that what their plans?
No, it's not to replace all of them, as to my knowledge, but they do have a very large number of them throughout the county. They're looking to either replace or to put one in where there is none now.
So why would we have a mishmash of bus shelters? It seems like, it would be better for the city to have one, kind of consistent look versus, well, these are some of the ones that the county's putting in, and then here's the ones that we have. Why would we have that?
I don't believe they fully expanded their program at this time. Again, because they're still looking for funding and a vendor.
Okay.
I'm sure they will expand at a later date.
Right. All right. I know that we had a previous conversation, and I think it was a good one, and I think that it needs to be said. There are some bus shelters that are in really bad shape that we have those wraps on, that I don't understand how it can be that we have wraps on ones that have been left halfway up with the previous artwork. And the second was the issue about advertising. And I know that originally when we talked about this, it was not going to be focused on advertising, and I think that everybody can agree that these have become advertising spots for the city, which is not what the intention was to be. I would make a suggestion. I don't mind the advertising, but I think it should be on the inside, maybe panel. Still, as the traffic is driving towards it, you can still see it, but it's on the inside, and let the the school be on the outside panel that you see that's directly in front, I would be okay with that. But I also think that we've got some that are repetitive too, and we talked about potentially having one per, so I'm open to whatever anybody has to say.
So I'll just, in regards to those concerns, I know that out of the gate, the Education Foundation did allow 2, I believe it was, per business, but I think you've adjusted that now. So no one has more than 2. And moving forward, it'll be 1 per.
Okay,
so,
great.
I think that's important to address. The only concern I have with moving is the inconsistency. We have so many wrapped already, and these bus shelters have 2 to 3 panels on the inside. So while you would be
Talking about the inside panel on, no. You know how there's the ones on the inside and then there's the 2 sides. If you use the side that's furthest away and just reverse it so that people can see it as it's driving, but you have that outside panel, that I think it would be less in-your-face advertising.
So on a lot of the bus shelters, that's where the casing is for the PalmTran map. Now, many of them don't have the map in there anymore. I don't know if they're taken or what have you, but that's actually the inside panel that you're talking about is supposed to be where PalmTran has their information, map, schedule, and so forth. So some of them do, some of them don't. So for consistency purposes and the fact that the program is working and raising an incredible amount of money and connecting our business community with our schools, I am in favor of extending it. The one thing I will say is that we cannot wrap bus shelters without completely removing past, art or addressing cracked plexiglass or, this is really the opportunity to address some of the things that we probably should have addressed with this program or without this program. So I know there's been 1 or 2 where that happened. And I think we just need to either 1, fix it, or 2, not provide that shelter to be wrapped, right, until a later date where that can be addressed. But those are my comments.
No comments.
Nothing? Okay. Anything? No?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mayor Petrolia?
Nope.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to resolution number 59-23. This is S7F. This is a budget resolution, a budget adoption. Mr. Moore.
Represent-
Oh, I'm sorry, Laura.
That's fine. Laura Dessine, representing the Department of Finance. And if I may, just to offer an introductory comment, many of these recommendations have actually been addressed before the City Commission prior. This is simply the formalization thereof as a function of the mid-year budget amendment process or budget adjustment process, as I like to put it. Likewise, a formal presentation is before you at this time to comprehensively summarize where we are. Ms. Dessine, if you would, please.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, I'm going to do a short presentation tonight on the budget amendment. So tonight we are requesting to amend the general fund and the neighborhood services fund. The first item in the general fund is for the creation of the communication department. So all we are doing is transferring all the communication personnel and any expenses from the city manager's office, the police and fire departments. There won't be any increase in the general fund, so it's a wash because all we are doing is moving the expenses from one department to the other. The second item is for the fire rescue department. For the fire, we are creating a new position, the civilian fire inspector, which will be funded with the fire concurrency mitigation fee, and it's for 4 months, $29,000. And the second item in the fire department will be to transfer $425,000 in salary savings to overtime, which was addressed earlier today. And the next one is a fun item is for the Billie Jean King Cup that will be held in a couple of weeks. The Parks and Recs department, they are requesting $124,000 to cover the expenses related to this event. And the good news is we are going to fund it with franchise fees because they are going to exceed the adopted budget. And The final item is for the disparity study that was approved in January. We are moving $152,000 from the non-operating contingency to the city manager's department. Again, no increase in the general fund. Any questions for the general fund? Okay.
I don't have any. Does anybody else have any?
No. Okay. The next fund will be the Neighborhood Services Fund. All we are doing is reappropriating the UDAG funds that were transferred last year in the Neighborhood Services Fund. So they are reappropriating these funds into the fiscal year 2023 in the tune of $3.8 million. So in summary, the general fund will increase by $153,000 for the fire inspector and the Billie Jean King Cup event, and the Neighborhood Services Fund will increase by $3.8 million for UDAG. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I have a question about the UDAG funds. You had if you put up the slide with the 188,000, back one.
That one is 3.8.
No, but go back up.
The next one, that one.
Yeah. So there was a UDAG personnel expenses, 188,000. What is that, and how is that being added to? I mean, these are operating expenses. I don't understand what that means. I mean, are we spending that, and if so, on what?
Mr.
Madam Mayor, members of the Commission, Sam Walthour, Neighborhood and Community Services Department. The UDAG funds are broken down into the strategies or the eligible activities, as we've shared before, that are in line with CDBG. So that's the idea, the home rehab, the purchase assistance, the public service funding for public agencies, nonprofit agencies that provide services. The 188, of course, we've got to staff that. We have staff that are attached to CDBG, SHIP, et cetera. In order for us to carry out those funding activities, we've got to have staffing for that program.
Don't we already have staffing for that?
Right, we have staffing for the program. The idea is to move the money over into the current fiscal year.
Why?
Because in order for us to be able to carry out the activities, we've got to have the funding officially into our
If we already have
budget.
staffing, and we already have that in our budget line item, why do we need to do it again?
We were able to pick up the staffing in the previous fiscal year. Now it's moving those dollars as a carry forward, similar to how we carry forward CDBG and SHIP and the other programs. It's a simple carry forward of the dollars from one fiscal year to the next.
Okay, so are we expending these dollars, or are we not expending these dollars? I guess my question is that if we're expending them, it seems like it's an expense, so that's an expenditure. So where is the $3.8 million going this year? Or if we're moving it over to this year's, or is this just going to be a carry forward probably into next year?
It's a carry forward, and so that we can carry out those eligible activities that I mentioned.
Okay, well, I don't understand. We've been carrying out those activities every single year that I've been here, that we've had the UDAG money in the account, and we've never used it for that. So my question is that are we now utilizing the UDAG funds for something like what you're talking about, the staffing?
Last fiscal year was the first fiscal year that we received the UDAG funding into our budget. This is.
I understand, but.
Mr. Walthour, Ms. Denise Kleski, I think, has some additional background information to answer the question specifically.
Okay,
Please.
specifically the.
Could you come to the mic, please?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Denise Kleski with Mr. Walthour, my boss. The 188, as Mr. Walthour said, is for our three fundings, our three employees who specifically are getting paid through the UDAG. This is in addition to our regular employees. So the UDAG is paying for three specific employees. That's where the 188 is. And then the funding that Mr. Walthour is speaking about, we have it's like the money is in the account, but now we need to actually expend it. We did 2 closings, so it's like people are waiting for the funds to be, to access the funds, but we physically have to have it go into a line item for us to use it.
Mhm.
And so that's why it was presented.
So
So what are the line items that we're going to be using this for?
purchase assistance, owner-occupied rehab, which helps to stabilize our communities. Also, the public services, those will be dollars similar to CDBG, where nonprofit agencies can apply for and receive funding to carry out services to benefit the city. So similar to CDBG and SHIP, we carry forward dollars into each fiscal year. So we need to carry forward UDAG from the first fiscal year that we had the money available, which was last fiscal year, now into this fiscal year to be able to carry out those services.
Anything else? Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
No. All right, moving on to public hearing section of our meeting, and we are at 8A. This is going to be a second reading for ordinance number 03-23.
This is ordinance number 03-23, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, amending the land development regulations of the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 7, Building Regulations, Article 7.4, Housing Code, by creating a new Section 7.4.3, Notice of Termination of Residential Tenancies and Payment Increase, providing for required written fair notice of termination of residential tenancies and for rental payment increases, providing for enforcement, providing a conflicts clause, providing a severability clause, authority to codify, and providing an effective date.
All right, and this is, if I might add, this is the situation where we're kind of marrying alongside of the county and with respect to giving the additional 60, or giving 60 days notice for anybody who has an increase of what, 10% is it? There's a percentage, but anyway, percentage, giving them that increase. My question to you is this: what are these the people that we're extending this to? What if they're not in good standing? I mean, to me, I'm thinking of a tenancy that isn't paying, and then getting an additional 60 days to be able to just continue to not pay. These are, a lot of these homeowners or landlords are not necessarily wealthy people. They just happen to have a business of, maybe renting out. I wonder if we can put something in there that would say that only if they are, that we would give that time frame only if they are, I don't know how to say that. I mean, you understand what I'm saying, in good standing, but here's the deal. I guess if they're raising the rents, they could just not raise the rents and that wouldn't apply. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
It only requires that if they're raising the rents or they're kicking
So they would
them
only
out,
raise
we
it
have
if
to
they
give
were
them
in good
60
standing,
days.
more than likely. They're not going to be raising it and then adding the 60-day notice. They can probably go through the whole process of eviction.
Eviction,
Yeah,
right.
okay, all right. I just want to make sure that we're not hurting another group. You know what I'm saying? Got it. All right, I'm good. Anything else? Any other questions or concerns? Oh, thank you, public comment. So this is a public comment agended item. So if there's anybody here that would like to speak to ordinance number 03-23, please step forward, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Seeing no one, public comment is closed. To the commission, maybe making a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, did you have, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
How is this enforceable?
So we will benchmark with Palm Beach County in terms of the notification process. So I'm looking at the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services to develop a program in terms of how we would enforce that, specifically borrowing or benchmarking with what's happening in Palm Beach County. So we'll provide more information within the next couple of weeks in terms of our enforcement mechanism.
Well, it wasn't not just enforcement, the communication, right?
Notification, yes.
This is a new right for tenants, and they need to know that they have this right now. So I believe Gina spoke to that in the first reading, making sure that we put a plan together.
Great.
That's consistent with my remarks as well. Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
And in the ordinance specifically, it calls for, it can be enforced by both code enforcement or law enforcement officers.
Very good.
So this provides for adequate notice. Okay.
Yes, it does.
Yep. Motion to approve ordinance number 03-23.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
All right, moving on to our first reads, and we have ordinance number 06-23.
Mayor, can I just ask for a clarification real quick? Just in regards to first readings, if it's non-quasi judicial, normally we just all, there's no presentation
right.
for a first reading, we all say yes, and then it comes to the second reading. Is that the case with both of these? There will be no, why are they different?
So because of the second one, 9B is actually related to rezoning and it has different notice requirements.
Okay.
Because of that, this will be a full presentation from both sides. It will be done like a quasi-judicial item. That's not to say that you can't follow that same process to move it forward from first reading and actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm not saying it like that. I'm saying you still will have to do the presentations. I'm just saying that's not to say that you can't consider moving it forward to second reading because they're not getting the full public comment on 9A. And since they're being moved together, it kind of makes sense to get it to second reading.
So we don't actually do full presentations at first reading, even for the quasi ones. The difference is that you have to open the public comment at the item time, and then the applicant, has the ability to make a comment.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Wow, no.
Right, and we're not doing that.
No, so.
Okay. I just want to make sure the public
Privately
understands.
initiated rezonings, this is part of what, and it's a change, and that's why
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm apologizing to Kelly Brannon too. This was a change that I think occurred after we had a recent challenge about another privately initiated rezoning that it had to be handled in a quasi manner. However, we still try to do the local rules of moving first readings forward. The goal of first reading is to make sure everybody knows what's going on so that they're prepared to, we can hear all the comments and the applicant and staff can provide a full analysis at the second reading for a final decision. But the public comment will be open for 9B because it's privately initiated rezoning. If it was city initiated, it's not quasi. It's gotten complex.
Are you going to be wanting to combine these two in order, or do we want to keep it separate?
I mean, I think we could, you have to take separate, I defer to Kelly Brandon on that one. You need to read it.
I mean, we can read them together and then just call up for public comment as it relates to 9B.
Okay. All right, very good. So there won't be a presentation then. What we're going to do is read both of these ordinances together, and then we're going to ask for public to come up and make comments on the 9B portion, and then we will deliberate and move forward.
This is ordinance number 06-23, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, adopting a small-scale land use map amendment, redesignating a 1.78 acre portion of a parcel of land located on the southwest corner at the intersection of Lake Ida Road and North Swinton Avenue, as more particularly described herein, from community facilities to low density pursuant to the provisions of the Community Planning Act, Florida Statute Section 163.3187, providing a conflicts clause and a severability clause, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. And I will read the next one. And this is first reading. Ordinance number 07-23, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, rezoning land measuring approximately 2.83 acres located on the southwest corner of the intersection at Lake Ida Road and North Swinton Avenue from community facilities to single-family residential, as more particularly described herein, amending the City of Delray Beach zoning map July 6, 2021, providing a conflicts clause and a severability clause, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. And this is quasi-judicial and a first reading.
Okay, so what we're going to do is open up the microphone to anybody who would like to speak to the quasi-judicial portion of these two ordinances. Now would be the time to step forward. You'll have 3 minutes. Just make sure that when you step forward, you say that you were sworn in, and just state your name and address.
Good evening, Kristen Cox, 5625 Frost Lane, Delray Beach.
Were you sworn in?
No.
Okay, we need to swear you in because it
Okay.
is quasi judicial.
Yep.
Even though I think it's.
That's fine. By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you. So I'm not going to reiterate a lot of the comments that have already been made about the concerns of protecting and preserving the zoning and the districts where we have these zonings. I think that's important. My concern that I want to stress is process. A lot of these things come before the commission and they're privately initiated. They're mostly developer initiated, and there's a lot of work to be done to our LDRs, to, if whatever it is we want our city to look like, if it's, we want to change these areas from these zonings, like that should be an inclusive public process. And I think a lot of that work is stunted because our staff is just completely inundated with these privately initiated applications. And so I guess my call to the commission is to provide some space. I don't know if it's consultants or if it's staff, but we need more space and time to have conversations as a public, as the city, what we need to put in place if we want our city to, look the way it looks now or look a different way. Like, we should be able to say that first. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Alice Fence, 707 Place Tavant. I'm just wondering.
Ms. Finst, did you stand up and get sworn in?
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you.
I was here at the beginning.
All right, good.
I'm just wondering, with this combination, what is going to happen with the traffic control at that intersection there? I don't know if they're going to have to put up, mid-street red, yellow, and green lights, or how this is going to change the transportation along that avenue. But I think that's something you need to mention now before this goes any further. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Come on up.
I ain't swear myself in, but I forgot.
If there's anyone else that needs to be sworn in that's going to be speaking, please stand now and raise your right hand so that we can get this. There we go.
By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. Yes, sir.
Montre Bennett, 323 Northwest 2nd Avenue. This is the village by the sea, right? This is not New York City. And it's simply to say it need to stay a village by the sea. For 35 years, I've been here in Delray Beach. In 35 years, I've lived in the house right next to that field. And I love going in that field to get mangoes, for sure. And I love going in that field to work in that garden because we are in a food desert. And growing is the best source of food that we can have. It's a better way. We need affordable housing, attainable housing. And I'm sorry, but this was done the wrong way. And you should have thought about residents and the people who live in the area before you made a decision to just come over here and want to change zones. Like Pablo said, 50,000 people probably has come through those fields over the last 50 years. Keep stuff where it is sometime and find another way to solve your problems.
Yes, sir?
Pablo, if you're coming, you better come now.
Or whoever, let's step up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gary Baritis, principal and broker of Atlantic Commercial Group, and I was hired as a real estate consultant, broker, and advisor to Case and Church over 3 years ago, to assist them in trying to create some value, try to put some money into their coffers so that they can continue doing and providing good for the community and providing various services. As we all know, congregations continue to have an outflux of people, funds to support their operations, their building, their physical plant, etc. And we had 14 various people come and made all kinds of presentations about density and number of homes, townhomes, apartments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the decision was ultimately made to go with the developer that is putting forth this proposal. And it's a very low density, and it really has such little impact on, the traffic, the community, et cetera. But will greatly help Case and Church in being in this town for another 120 years, hopefully, and beyond. And my last comment is there's been a lot of talk. People say that, there's other opportunities for people to have purchased this land to make other alternative uses. Property was on the market for, like I said, 3 years, about 1.5 to 2 years. It was available, both through a sign on the property, through commercial databases open to the public, and we did not have any other offers from any community facilities or other CRAs, et cetera, et cetera. And so the decision was made to go in this direction, and I hope Cason will continue to be a pillar in this community, and I look forward to the future of this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I am Barbara Wooden, Chairman of the Board of Trustees for Cason United Methodist, and I'm out of my depth. We're a church. We know how to pray for you. We know how to do missions. This is totally different. We just wanted to sell our property and continue to do missions here and abroad. And that's what I'm here to talk about tonight. I love Cason. I've been a member there for almost 20 years. I love the fact that we work with Cross Ministry and provide hot meals for the underserved for 5 days a week. And then on the 6th and 7th day, we have an internal group which provides sandwiches, bag lunches. It's been headed by the same woman for almost 30 years. I love the fact that we now have a school there, Cocoa Plum, which is growing, and they love where they are. And like most churches, we're getting older. And as we get older, we lose members. We need a way to replenish our funds. We've had that field for 50 years, and we use it maybe 2 or 3 times a year. We keep it cut, because if we don't, we get a note from you that says, but anyway, we haven't put it to the best use. And now is an opportunity with Delray being a growing area where the cost per acre is somewhere that I never thought I would see it. My grandparents moved to Delray in 1919, before Delray was even Delray. I think it was Linton back then. So we've watched all kinds of changes. My mother was one of the first maids hired at the Colony Hotel when they opened in 1927. Things change. That lot is not going to be empty always. It's going to help us make changes for the better of the community, for the better of our members, for the betterment of the citizens of Delray. Someone mentioned that we've been at this for 120 years, and we hope to be at it for 120 more. So we have to find ways to change. We can't afford the luxury of just maintaining an empty lot. We need to move forward. We need to continue to work with the city on projects like Pumpkin Patch and getting that done. I would say that probably 90% of the people here have been by Pumpkin Patch, brought their children there. I run into people all the time. So I guess that's for me.
That's for you.
So I would just like to say, in the end, we've developed a wonderful relationship with Azure, and we're very confident in moving on with them in the development of the project that we are working on for what we call West Lot and what they're calling Cason Corners.
Thank you very much.
George Lowell, 46 North Swinton. Finally, somebody said it right. It's Cason. Cason, not Casan. Please, people. I knew some of the Casons. In any event, George Lowell, 46 North Swinton. I've been sworn in. The last two presenters had some very valid points here concerning the economics of maintaining the church. I am looking at the, sort of taking an overview approach to this and looking at it in terms of the land use amendments and what the criteria are. And it's not exactly what you're going to put on there. You're not supposed to even bring an exact plan. It's sort of like contract zoning. Once you change it to whatever zoning you're going to change it to, there's some variation of what can go there. So that's not the important thing. The important thing is the location. And it's a shame if they have to do this, because that location is so great for a community facility. On what could be better than Lake Ida Road and Swinton Avenue, close to the core of downtown, a big piece of property. We've given away some community facility property, and I could understand why. I mean, let it go because it was too. Well, it's next to the railroad track, and it was a parking lot. But here we're going to cut back a very big piece of land that's for a community facility. So we need to look at that. That would be a really good use if it's possible. And again, I appreciate the problem when I say this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Pablo Del Real. Just a few additional points on this item 9B regarding the rezoning request. One is, I've heard it said, and sounds about right, 7% of the land in the city of Delray Beach is zoned community facilities. That's a very small percentage, and this is a significant piece of property that would be rezoned and reduce that percentage. Just as housing is being built, and people need, more people will need community facilities to thrive in the city of Delray Beach, not less community facility zoning. That's one point. A second point is that the zoning on that corner is a mirror image of the corner on the north, which is Trinity Lutheran Church today. So I envision if an intersection has two gas stations, one on the north corner and one on the south, and one gas station is doing well and the other gas station is not doing so well, and the gas station has to move out, we don't change the zoning for the gas station that moves out. We find a better owner of that property. So changing the zoning on the south side is going to disrupt that area, which is not compatible. I believe that's one of the standards you all have to look at here, right? Is there a change in circumstances within the city of Delray Beach that merits a change to the rezoning? I haven't heard that yet. And is the rezoning change going to result in something that's compatible with that area? So you've got a mirror image across the street, and you're being asked to change the zoning on the south side. Third point, last point here, the Cason Church does have a long history. I was happy to be at the 120-year celebration. And it has moved in that time. It's been in 3 different locations. This is the 3rd location. And if this is part of a long process of moving, that's understandable. The zoning doesn't need to change when the church moves. Thank you.
Sir, can you just state your address for the record? I don't think.
I did earlier, yeah. 6285 White Pine Way,
Thank you.
33462.
Go ahead and
That's
say
in
it.
Lantana. I mentioned earlier. I work with Soil and Soul. We work here in Delray Beach. Do I need to repeat that?
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Oh, I'm the applicant, so yes. I don't just explain it to me because this is new to me.
No, but I don't know that are we doing cross?
No, we're not. I think.
Okay.
It's okay. I can
Because-
speak in public comment and, leave it to Delray to always be innovative about process. But Marcella Camblor, principal of Marcella Camblor and Associates, here representing Azure, the applicant. I am not going to cross-examine. I'm going to take this opportunity to just do some brief remarks.
Sure.
We will have an opportunity to do a full presentation and bring all the analysis to you on second hearing. Just to emphasize what staff said, we do have a project that will eventually come forward to the appropriate board that takes up 2.83 acres. The land use, which was the first reading, is about half of that, a land use change, because half of the property already has a land use designation of low density, which is not just consistent with, but it is exactly the same as all the properties surrounding us. The zoning, on the other hand, for the 2.83 acres, half of it, the zoning is community facility, and we are looking at changing that zoning to R1A, which again is exactly the same zoning as our surrounding neighborhoods. Again, we're not trying to be compatible, we're trying to be the same. I think a couple of things that we feel we just want to mention, this is a first hearing. We have been doing this for several months with planning and zoning, and got caught in the pandemic, so this process has taken much longer than normal, but it is an initial process to start the conversation. No one has talked about a project. I've heard during public comments about number of units and design features and things, which is not what we're here for today, nor have we presented to anyone. I've heard a lot about community facilities and losing our community facilities. I appreciate the fact that certain types of uses can go in communities, facilities, land use designations, but this is a private property, a private use. It's not a civic public use. And I appreciate, as it was mentioned, I guess they have numbers that 50,000 people have used somebody's private property over the last 5 years, but it's still private property. And as the church has said, they're trying to come up with the appropriate use at the appropriate time. They're not selling their parking lot. They're not selling an integral part of the church. This is a separate parcel that was at one point donated to this church. The church has been in this location for 50 years. It's not a plan to move. And so after reviewing several applicants, they decided that the applicant that is trying to go with the most compatible, in fact, the exact same land use and zoning as the neighborhood, would make them a better neighborhood with the community. Like I said, we will come back to you, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Seeing no one, public comment is closed. So we're going to do separate.
Yes, please. Two separate motions.
Just for the public, Anthea, can you just explain our local rules in regards to first readings? Because I just want everybody to understand.
I'm going to do this. I'll try. So ultimately, we do not do presentations at first reading. We simply, and typically the land use, we are reading the ordinances for the public so that everybody is aware of the change that is being considered. The full analysis and the quasi-judicial cross-examining and all of those longer parts of the analysis happen at second reading. So I think it's important everyone came out to speak and give comment. It certainly gives the applicant some things to consider, and it gives staff some focus in terms of where the concerns are for the full presentation that will happen at second reading.
Okay. Usually this is like 2 minutes. Motion to approve.
It's a
And then we all say yes, and it just goes to the second hearing. We do it for everyone, no matter how you're going to vote in the end. I just want everyone to know that we do it every week.
And I was
So-
going to say, the only difference here was that we had one part of it being quasi-judicial, which we had to open up to everybody speaking, so that's what made it different. But it is kind of clunky. I don't know how we got into this tonight, and the reason for that is because it was bifurcated, with one being quasi and one not being quasi, so it's a little unusual.
If it was a city-initiated rezoning,
get
it
it.
wouldn't have been quasi, but
Right.
because it's
Right.
privately initiated, which,
Right.
you know, is important. Everyone has a chance to
Understood.
raise their comments.
All right, very good. So go ahead, and if you...
Motion to approve ordinance 623.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
No.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Motion to approve ordinance 723.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Burns?
No.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel? Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Okay. Now, to everybody who was in the audience and who spoke, we're moving it on to second to get the full presentation, just so everybody understands that. It's important to understand. Okay, so moving on, we are,
And you'll meet with Ms. Jowen about it.
So is this the, public notice of it, so to speak?
correct. We have to have two,
So now
two
the
public
We
hearings.
did it so the presentations were usually duplicates, right? So usually in the second time, we were skipping the presentation because we'd already been given the presentation. However, the public come out to comment on the second time, but then they don't see the presentation. So we finally just said, public comes out once, we sit through the presentation once. In order to do that, we have to just pass the first hearing. And we made that decision a few years ago.
And we also made it so that if in fact there were a majority of us that were absolutely in opposition, that there wasn't a lot of work done by the city to the second hearing, to be able to, have to go through all of that and then have us turn it down. So if something was really sticking out as being something that we wouldn't agree to, it has saved the city a tremendous amount of work. And this is one of those situations where I think we all want to hear what the, everything about this. It's not a full decision, just a decision to move it on, okay? Does that make sense? All right, very good. So moving on to the comments and inquiries and non-agenda item, Mr. Moore?
Yes, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, I actually have two items I'd like to just briefly mention. First of all, this Friday's information letter report will feature a brief update regarding the proposed budget process as it relates to city charter compliancy. I offer this commentary simply because the city was quite successful in recently engaging with the Office of the Inspector General with respect to demonstrating our most recent processes to achieve compliancy in that regard. So that exercise, as well as a couple inquiries as initiated by the Palm Beach County Office of the Inspector General, offers a great deal of confidence that the city is moving in the right direction in terms of honoring its commitments to achieve compliancies in every regard, which is actually timely because, of course, we will now continue to engage, I should say, with the State of Florida Auditor General with respect to a number of inquiries that they've had initiated in recent years. So follow-up activities will be directed in that regard, and the Office of the City Manager, Department of Finance, and others will likewise look forward to updating the City Commission in terms of progress being made and demonstrating a similar level of confidence via the experience with the Office of the Inspector General. So I just wish to bring that to you all's attention because, of course, we'll be busy in that regard. And nevertheless, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to demonstrate solid direction accordingly. Secondly, I will be spending time with the two new elected officials, myself and other members of the leadership team, to provide individual orientations relative to the public-private partnership consideration process and the evolution to that effect moving forward. So that will take place over the next couple of weeks, and I would therefore like to ask the Commission to start thinking a little bit about the time frame in terms of offering direction in terms of how we move forward in that regard. I'm not looking for an answer tonight, but I'm asking you all to get your thoughts together as I proceed accordingly so that we can offer some degree of direction one way or another. So again, please do what you can to get your thoughts together. But again, I will proceed accordingly as I think Deputy Vice Mayor Long and Commissioner Burns should have the opportunity to be brought up to speed, if you will, and that will be my commitment moving forward. Thank you.
It's great you brought that up because I was going to bring it up anyway, Mr. Moore. I wanted to ask, especially my colleague the vice mayor, what kind of time frame are you needing to do your reach out? You said that you hadn't really felt like you got to enough people. You needed to reach out. And the reason I'm asking is for two reasons. Number one, this has been ongoing for a very long period of time. And to have these four proposers sitting in the wings continuing, and we're all under a cone of silence, so we can't speak to them, but to sit there waiting, I just worry that we're really sending a wrong and mixed signal. So I think that we need to, kind of get to that point. And at the same time, I spoke with Mr. Moore. If we end up doing something in the next couple of meetings, the workshop which is going to be our goal setting is coming up in May. And that would be a perfect time if nothing comes to fruition here, if there is a choice, fifth option, if you will, whatever, that would be a perfect time to really kind of workshop that idea so that we don't have that loss in time, because we will have rolled around to another year with nothing being done.
So initially I was saying, when Mr. Moore asked me what I was thinking 60 to 90 days, but you bring up a great point.
I just worry about that. That's a long time.
Not so much about the time, because we did move, I feel like we moved, pretty quickly through some of the processes. But you're right, we really should make this decision before we meet in May.
I agree.
So I don't know what, the rest
So
of our
is there a
colleagues
May
think.
meeting that we can utilize, the first meeting in May, that we could go ahead and have as a goal, if you will, to make the selection?
The calendar in May, you have a meeting May 2nd?
Yes.
May 16th. We are also proposing a meeting for May 9th regarding the
Workshop.
OSS piece, and that's direction to that effect as well. May 12th is your goal-setting session, so May 2nd would be,
I think that would be the
Appropriate.
normal. I don't think I want it on a special. I'd rather have it on a regular. Go ahead.
And May 9th, we tentatively have a workshop with Old School Square.
correct, that's what I mentioned.
That's
Yes,
what he
sir.
just
Okay.
Yes, sir. And I'm taking that under
Also
account.
that week.
And I don't want that workshop, I don't want to be time
Goal
limited
setting.
with throwing a special meeting, on top.
Yes,
of it.
sir.
So May 2nd?
Yeah, I think
Very
that
well.
would work out. It gives you enough time to speak with our colleagues here.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate that, ladies and gentlemen, because again, I'm on point to visit with the two new elected officials during the week of April 17th. That's plenty of time to prepare accordingly, so I appreciate that direction. We'll be happy to make arrangements.
Very good.
It'll be on the regular commission meeting?
On May
or-
2nd.
Okay, I just didn't know if you're
Yes.
coming earlier. Perfect.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so thank you. City Attorney?
I don't have any comments.
All right,
Thank
very
you
good.
all.
Yeah,
Thank you very
absolutely.
much.
And to the commission. So let's start on this end, if we don't mind. We'll start with Mr. Long.
I don't have any comments.
Nope, okay.
I did have one comment. Mr. Moore,
Sir.
as I alluded when our great police chief made comments earlier that I've been bothering him, I wanted to bring my colleagues' attention as well as you. The last couple weekends in our downtown, particularly Worthing Park and particularly Old School Square Park, there's been vendors set up asking aggressively for money. They've had tables set up. They've had microphones set up, preaching the gospel.
Right.
And I just don't know if it's part of our city code. I don't believe it is. But I've noticed a serious increase on the weekends. I can't say for the evenings during the week. But it's just something I don't know if code could look at or just to keep an eye on, because, I understand there's certain things people can do, but we're talking about tables, we're talking about microphones and speakers. That's a little excessive.
Yes, sir, and if I may,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner, so I recently met with leadership of both the Delray Beach Police Department and Neighborhood and Community Services, which functions Code Enforcement Division, to ask them to work collaboratively to address some of these issues, because living here, working here, I've observed some similar observations, not only downtown, but in a couple other specific parts of the city as well. So there's a fine line to the point you've made thus far. We've completed some research and offered direction to that effect. So there are some specific strategies we can, in fact, execute. However, working closely with the Office of the City Attorney long-term, we're hoping to bring forth some considerations that will provide additional tools to even be more responsive.
I appreciate that. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Very good. All right, to Commissioner Burns, nothing? Okay, here we go.
I
It
like
was
these.
Very quick to
I
get
like
down to
these,
you.
newbies here. This is good.
I
This is a
know.
good start. No, I'm just kidding.
Shout out Shirley, wherever you are.
I was, well, I noticed that the police chief just walked in right before my comments, and I stood him up for lunch today. At the last second, I had to cancel because I went to the Eat Better, Live Better luncheon. So I double booked the chief. So since you just came in, I just wanted to publicly say I apologize, and we'll get back together for lunch. I was going to ask Mr. Moore just an update on the Old School Square settlement paperwork, or, you know, I thought it was going to be on today's agenda, but.
Yes, sir. That's actually being finalized now.
Between
So
the two parties, no issues?
currently, no. In fact, a news release is being finalized. I think you all would be receiving that as well, based on the direction offered this past Friday. So
Okay.
we're looking forward to getting that squared away.
Got it, got it. And then the second thing, I was gonna ask to have the discussion today, but I know we've already been here for over 4 hours. But one of the comments were in regards to the meeting time, and it made me think about any ideas that our two new colleagues, anything that you have that you want to discuss, maybe during next comments, you can bring to the table. That is specifically one that I know I heard when you guys were on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
It's one that I'm in favor of. What time? Well, we can discuss that. But any other thoughts or any other? You have a list.
I have a
Okay,
list.
so
For
that's
next
why you're
time.
quiet this week, because all right, you're putting together a
Bring it-
list.
bring it
But
next
I would just like to. I know our meetings, go long, and at the end we are looking to get out. But I think next meeting is just important to kind of open it up for discussion, because I would love to hear your thoughts on some things.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Anything else?
Great, that was it.
All right, very good. So, just want to,
2 o'clock sounds good to me.
2 o'clock?
I thought you wanted to make it earlier.
No, they're talking about later.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that we'll have that discussion then. Yeah,
right,
okay.
right.
Because, there's good and bad to both sides, and I can tell you, I've been through both, and I don't care when we meet. I don't have, kids at home anymore, so I can be here anytime. We can start late, we can start early, it doesn't matter to me.
Right.
I think that, what I found is that we actually, and I don't know, maybe it's because, we got popular people here. We get more people now than we ever did when I was actually up here way before. You probably are witness to that as well. When we switched it to 4, we got more people here. It's a very interesting thing. And when they go home around 6, it's like everybody kind of starts to empty out, going home to eat. So when we started at 6, we weren't getting people in. It was quiet. It was very, very quiet. And somebody asked for the cutoff time. I believe it's 11.
That's me.
Huh?
We did that. It was,
Right.
we started, you had to vote after 11 o'clock because
Right.
we had meetings till 1, 1:30, 2
Oh,
in the
and
morning.
sometimes even longer,
Yeah.
but hopefully, we're not having those long meetings now. But truthfully, you have to remember also, staff is here during that entire time too, so it cuts them out earlier, whereas we were actually here sometimes until after midnight. But I think that cutoff time actually is hard at 11 unless we actually, we have to vote to extend it. So somebody had asked that question.
Yep.
And the only other thing that I'm sorry?
Sorry, I was just saying that's correct.
Okay, and the only other thing I was going to mention is that we had one amazing night at Savor the Avenue. I don't know if anybody else was there, but it was phenomenal. And I just have to tell you, I hand it to the DDA for putting that together, and all the restaurants, and of course the city staff who are down there putting everything together. It really is just a really great mark on our city. And when you're walking around and people are talking to you from here and other places, all they talk about is just how amazing and fabulous that event is and our city is, because it's a true reflection of who we are when we're doing something that's that great. And so kudos to you and your team, Laura, for really putting together just an amazing night for everybody who attends. And even those who don't have those tickets, because they do go quick, walking up and down and just feeling that energy it's like nothing you're ever going to feel again. And so I just want to say congratulations. It was a great evening.
I just have one
Sure.
important message. A message from Commissioner Shirley Johnson. Thank you for the shout out.
All right, with that,